Yes, I can. Can you hear me? No. Okay, I'll just go back on blank screen for this time.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting for Tuesday, June 20th to order. First, I'd like to open up the meeting with the land acknowledgement statement. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge on behalf of Council and the community that the City of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we reside. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none? Yes.
I will have one disclosure of pecuniary interest for 7C, dealing with the Robbie Dean Center's request for serving alcohol.
Okay, let the record show. Councillor Keel has declared a pecuniary interest with 7C. Thank you. Any others? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda, please? Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Purcell. All in favor? Approved. The Parks and Rec Committee meeting for May 16th was circulated. Are there any errors or omissions? Moved. Is that a move?
Move to adopt, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Jackno, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All in favor? Accepted. Delegations. We have a community safety and well-being plan presentation. Heidi, are you coming up? Okay.
So Mr. Pat Finnegan, our consultant in the community safety and development, is in attendance virtually to speak to this matter and in regards to the next steps of our community safety and well-being plan. So I turn it over to Mr. Finnegan.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a few slides here just to help walk me through this. There we go. Can you see my screen?
We can now. Thank you.
Okay. So, well, the very first order of business is to say thank you. Thank you to so many counselors and people that sent me messages to motivate me. I went through a pretty significant health issue. There's a couple delays, that were in the way. First of all, the pandemic, and then I was diagnosed with melanoma cancer, which managed to advance itself to stage 4. And that really got in the way. I'm thrilled to say I'm in my 10th month of remission. And so that's wonderful. There was a lot of collateral damage that I had to get over. And if you see me squinting a lot, this right eye is still giving me quite a bit of trouble. But from a laundry list of collateral damage, we're down to one right eye being sore and irritable. And I think I can live with that. So, in particular, I want to thank Mayor Ron Gervais, who not only supported me, but, acted as a mentor of sorts and really, I truly felt that he was in my corner every step of the way. And it was so important for me to finish this. And so many people said, why don't you just give it up? And I refused to. And it was on my laundry list of reasons to live. So it just feels a little surreal to be here and be presenting this. The next slide, just going to show you where I was at in May last year. If you've got a weak stomach, look away. I'll only leave it up for a minute. But that's what I looked like in May of 2022. And I was told, this is right after an appointment at Kingston Cancer Clinic, and I was told not to expect to live through the summer. But miraculously, and it was nothing short of a miracle, the immunotherapy treatment that I was on began to work. I had radiation on that eyelid and nothing else. In addition to these tumors that you see, it was in my liver, it was in my lungs, it was in my kidneys, and all up my spine. And to quote my oncologist from a month ago, she could have put a room full of medical professionals together and no one would have believed that I would survive. So I made a deal with the big guy that if he got me out of that mess, I would devote my remaining days to the service of others. So I'm happy to say that, for the next 3 years, I will be operating in a volunteer capacity for you, driving this plan forward. So what you see on the left here is just a snapshot of the cover. I'm not actually unveiling the entire plan right now. I have a few more tweaks before it's finished. And my goal is to have it finished by the end of this month and then delivered to every council. But more on that. So there's a cover page here that lists the 9 municipalities. There's an inspiring quote up front, and then we jump right into it. Page 1 is a narrative summary. Simply, what is community safety and well-being planning for someone who's never heard of it before? A nice, simple narrative read. Now, I think Councillor Jacquinot's there, and I said, I'm going to have to eat my own words. I'd said some time ago, it's not going to be a 90-page plan because I looked at so many 90-page plans. And many of them, it took till page 60 to find out what the goals and objectives were. So I said, well, I'm not going to do that. And he complimented me saying, I'm glad that you actually have the common sense to realize that. But as I got into it and I started breaking everything down and spending time explaining things, and I've gone to great effort not to make this a big, long narrative read. There's a ton of infographics and sort of things that you can comprehend at a glance. But the plan is around 90 pages. So in order to not completely embarrass myself, what I've done is created 3 levels of engagement. So one is called the elevator pitch, then the dentist read, and the deep dive, and I'll just explain those quickly. So the elevator pitch, you'll just see here on the right, this is just a single page summary of the purpose and methodology of community safety well-being planning. It talks about, we go downstream, we predict harm, we identify risks, then we involve those who are affected in a collaborative way. We implement a strategy to reduce the risks. We assess and modify our strategies along the way if it's not working, and we just continue to repeat that cycle and over. Very similar to the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen, which stands for constant and never-ending improvement. So this last box down here on the right says, hey, you know what? This isn't a one and done, it's a way of life. Then we get into what I call the dentist office read. So this is an 8-page summary, and right away in those first 8 pages, you see what the goals are that were identified, what the next steps are moving forward, and you get a bit more of the detail of the methodology and how we got to where we are. And then for those who wish to work with the plan, sit on a committee, do something very specific in the theme of community safety well-being, there's over 60 pages of detail, data, analysis, planning, the methodology, the priorities, and more. For example, actually, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I won't give you that example yet. Here's just a quick shot. When I say graphic summary, there was a lived experience survey that I developed, and that went out, and we had some pretty good response. And respondents were asked to rank risk factors. There are 29 risk factors. These are set by the provincial government. And those are the ones that we work with in community safety well-being planning and in situation tables. And so they were asked to rank each risk factor on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 not being a concern at all, and then 5 being very serious in terms of its prevalence. And so you can very quickly look over on the left and see that out of the 9 municipalities, they didn't see homelessness as a huge problem. Now, before you say, that doesn't jive with what we know about the communities, you'll see in the next slide that a different risk factor that refers to lack of appropriate housing scored very high. Obviously people are keen to the definition of homelessness. You can have some sort of a shelter, but it's inappropriate. But really quickly, you can look at, I'll just focus on drug addiction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 municipalities ranked drug addiction as very high. Laurentian Hills said it's high, it's not very high. And then Head Claire and Maria said, you know what, we don't really think it's a problem here. So what we do, and over here on the right, I won't get into the math, but I've provided an explanation of how these things were weighted and how these color charts were created. So there's about, I think it's 6 pages in order to cover the 29 different risk factors. And then I summarize them. And this is what it looks like when they're summarized over here on the right. So for instance, you see mental health. And it's pretty much number 1 in every municipality that I've worked with. I've worked with 3 different municipal groups, but this is consistent across the province. And so the summary says this risk factor was rated very high in prevalence in 8 municipalities and high in 1 other. So this tells the advisory committee that regardless of the current programs and services or supports in place, that more could and should be done with respect to this risk factor. All right, that's enough on that. There's lots more, but I don't have enough time to show you all that right now. So what I want to do is orient you towards the next steps. So finish the plan, submit it to each respective council. My goal is to do that by the end of this month. There's just a few things left. I have to hound some mayors for their remarks. It comes in the end. There's a section, leaders' messages. I have Mayor Ron Gervais, I have Mayor Neil Nicholson from Whitewater and Mayor Bennett from Laurentian Valley, but I have to reach out to the others and get their summaries, and there's a few other things. So a bit of tweaking left to do. But then the very next step is an inventory of programs and services. And I think Mayor Gervais will agree, because I think he started out his term as mayor along these very same lines, where we want to make sure that we're not creating redundancy of effort or economic resources. That the tax dollars are finite. There's only one ratepayer. So before we go creating something new at the risk of creating something that overlaps or is redundant with something that already exists, we need to do an inventory of every single service and program that's available. Many communities have tried this. We tried this in LNA years ago, but there is no comprehensive single document that contains all of that, that's digital, available to the public, and searchable. And so we need that. I need to click programs and services inventory. And so that's all going to be put into a document by me that I'm referring to as the Lighthouse document. And so I use the lighthouse as a metaphor of something that we need to keep our eye on as we move forward. And I heard recently, actually, a very interesting metaphor. This gentleman was on a podcast, and he said, when you have a lifelong goal, it shouldn't be the moon, because you can actually go to the moon. It should be something that you can't actually achieve so that you're constantly striving. So he referred to it as a North Star. It's there, it's your constant guide, but you can't actually go to the North Star. So this lighthouse document kind of becomes our North Star. It will, and I'm thinking about something like Google Sheets, something really simple. It could go into a database. I'm looking at some similar applications in the US. There's one called govsolutions.net that is very, very similar, but at the very least, if we use something like Google Sheets, then anyone, anywhere, as long as they have access to the internet, could click on the document. They wouldn't be able to edit it, but they'd be able to see it. They'd be able to search it. So if they wanted to know what's available along the lines of alcohol and drug addiction, you'd be able to do a search and go and see, oh, there's this program. These are the goals, performance measures, and results. Here's a contact, etc. And so that document, I think, is absolutely critical before we start to create anything new. So once that's in place, then we engage in something called Keep, Drop, Create. And I stole this from Shelley Jameson, who at one time was the Secretary of Cabinet. And she was hosting a lunch and learn in Kingston when I was the detachment commander in Napanee. And I went to it. And she was talking about government becoming nimble was the word that she used. And in order to be nimble, she said, we have to get good at keep, drop, create. So she said, we need to look at everything that we're doing and decide what we're doing that we should keep doing, what we're doing that we should stop doing, that's the drop part, and what we're not doing that we need to create. Now, she made the comment that, interestingly enough, the part that most organizations or institutions have trouble with is the drop. So they tend to keep doing the same things, and then they create the things that they're not doing, but they don't drop anything. So then the snowball effect occurs, and instead of becoming nimble, they become actually more cumbersome. And so that's a really important exercise for the advisory committee to look at that inventory of programs and services and go through Keep, Drop, Create. And of course, they'll be looking at the data, and there wasn't just a lived experience survey. There's a situation table data, data from policing, data from social services, recommendations from the domestic violence inquest, et cetera, that will help guide, further strategies that would be implemented to reduce risk and provide better safety and well-being. So that's Keep, Drop, Create. This next one, referring to community champions, this is a suggestion. People don't have to follow it. But when we started this process, I know that a number of the smaller municipalities were a little reticent about joining a large group. So this is a joint community safety wellbeing plan of 9 different municipalities. Renfrew area is similar. And so what happens is the smaller municipalities get concerned about this idea that their unique concerns will be eclipsed by the larger municipality. And that happens sometimes as just a natural sort of consequence of being big and being small and through no fault of anyone's. But I had promised those folks, you will not be pushed aside. Your concerns will be heard. And so I'm going to invite each of the communities to create their own community safety team or community connection champions. So this is a small group of people with varied backgrounds, hopefully some people with some lived experience who will function within that community to address community safety and well-being concerns. They would report those to the overall advisory committee, which of course reports to the respective councils. But you can't just throw people in a role and not provide them with some sort of training. So over on the right, you'll see 4 sort of disciplines or philosophies of community safety wellbeing planning, and they are Ontario's mobilization and engagement model of community policing. That's a very specific philosophy on how we move forward and solve problems within our communities. It ties in nicely, even in terms of color coding, with community safety wellbeing planning and the 4 pillars, which I won't get into now. Situation table awareness and access and function training. So we want to try and revitalize the situation table and create some awareness across all of the organizations. I'll speak to that specifically in a moment. And then there's something called asset-based community development. It was originally developed by a man by the name of John McKnight and is currently being championed by Cormac Russell, who the advisory committee was exposed to as a result of a video that I played during one of our sessions. And this is a very specific and very innovative community development philosophy that I think, it would be a shame if we didn't incorporate that. So what I want to do is create a framework and some language and some skills for people. And I'm going to develop these 4 modules of training, and I'm going to deliver them. They'll be available online so people can work away independently, and you can get a certificate of completion at the end of it. And all of this is done as a volunteer at 0 cost to the municipality. Next, I spoke about the situation table awareness. So let me just, nothing better than a short story, and I'm almost finished here, but today I had a conversation with a detachment commander who's a good friend of mine, and he recently just took over in a particular detachment, and he said, Pat, I didn't know what a situation table was. And I'll explain briefly what it is for those who don't know. But he said, I got a hold of the housing manager in my area, and we were creating this sort of action table to deal with homeless people that my police officers encounter, so that we could kind of create some wraparound services. Well, what time out? You're talking about the situation table. So what is the situation table? I was the one who led and implemented the situation table in LNA County. You have one in your county as well. There are about 40 of them in the province of Ontario. They originated in Glasgow, Scotland. The model was copied by Prince Albert, Saskatchewan Police Chief Dale McPhee, and then Ontario copied it from Saskatchewan. I saw Dale McPhee speak one time at a commissioned officers conference and thought this was the right fit for Lennox and Addington. And so all it is every single Tuesday or whatever day of the week in LNA, it's Tuesday, and I continue to chair this meeting as a volunteer. About 21 different frontline health, human justice, and emergency service workers sit down. And if anyone has a situation involving an individual or family who are facing multiple risk factors that, if left unmitigated, are likely to result in a crisis, like a 911 call, then that story gets told to the group in a de-identified way. Names and dates of birth are kept separate. Then the group is asked, does this fit our working definition of acute elevated risk? So that's just like reasonable probable grounds in policing. It's a working definition that you become accustomed to. And if we agree that it meets that threshold of risk, then the person is identified by name, address, and date of birth. Everyone looks to see if on their databases, if they're already working or have worked with the person. And then we build a team, a wraparound team. Okay, of the 21 agencies that are here, how many of you have supports or services that are relevant to the story that was just told? And then what happens is we build a team. There might be 6 people that say that they can contribute. The meeting ends. Those 6 people stay in the Zoom call, and they make a plan within the next 48 hours to do a door knock on that person's residence if they can find them. And you would say, okay, so 6 people show up on someone's doorstep and say, hey, we're from this group. That's exactly what happens. And when this first came out years ago, I thought there were going to be a lot of people walking around with flat noses from doors being slammed in their faces. But the stats were, and this stat is 5 years old. There had been 8,000 door knocks recorded in the province of Ontario, and the acceptance rate was 85%. And so the analogy I use, you could be at a cocktail party and it's the best tiger shrimp you've ever had in your life, but you've had enough of it and you're over in the corner having a lovely conversation and you're just unmotivated to make the walk across to get another one. But if someone puts a silver platter with one right under your chin, there's a good chance you're going to take it. And people in crisis are just trying to survive. They're not in long-term planning mode. They're just trying to survive. So when you bring the services right to the door, and the response has been, by many of them, overwhelming. It's often emotional. This many people care about me. And so it's nothing new. It's existing programs and services, but you're trying to make a connection where you find the person. And so maybe what happens is somebody from addictions and mental health makes an appointment for next Tuesday at 10 o'clock and the person follows through. There's a database that tracks no names, no date of birth, just the data. That data is included. It's called the Risk Tracking Database. It's housed by the Ontario government. And that data is included on our Community Safety Wellbeing Plan and informs the work that we do. All right, so that's a lot of work. And I anticipate that work and creating sort of that methodology and way forward would take us to the end of December 2024, at which point in time we would update the plan. So picture this, you've got on every municipal website, you've got a link to the plan. Then you've got a link to the companion document, which is the lighthouse document. And then we will do update reports. I'll let the advisory committee and councils decide, but I'm sort of in favor of not altering the original plan and simply providing updates. And of course, anything new that's developed would be updated within the lighthouse document. And that concludes what I was going to present tonight, and I'm open to any questions.
Well, I want to thank you, Pat. I also want to compliment you on your drive and your will to survive, not just your determination to complete this project. A lot of individuals might have just said, you know, I'm out of here and pass it on, but I want to just say that we appreciate everything you've done despite your own personal challenges. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. I really appreciate the efforts that you've put into this this plan, and thank you for your dedication. It's amazing. I'm glad to see that you're doing well. There's a couple things in regards to domestic abuse. You know, as we all know, Renfrew County, it's at epidemic levels in regards to domestic abuse, and I know that you incorporated you know, some of the stats in regards to you know, stats from various organizations such as Renfrew County Victim Services. Also, the recommendations that came out of the coroner's inquest in regards to the Trimble homicide. So thank you for that. Those were two key issues that I was kind of looking to see how that was going to be incorporated into the strategy. The other thing too, just a question in regards to the inventory of the programs. Is the goal then the one-stop shop to have that available on 211 in Ontario so that people could just pick up the phone? This is the service I want. It's simple, it's easy. You don't have to worry about electronic access. Everybody has access to a telephone, and just pick up the phone and say, this is what I'm struggling with, and point me to the appropriate resources.
Fantastic question, and you're reading my mail. So 211 is a fantastic resource. For some reason, a lot of people aren't aware of it. I thought, hey, you know, that's where this should be housed, and we may eventually get there. The problem is right now the search parameters in 211 are really ineffective. So just by way of an example, you know, when I search for something in Napanee, I get hits on things in Ottawa, all around the outlying area. Like, it's very difficult to narrow things down to a specific community. And that may just be something that can be fixed at their end. And so that's absolutely one of the things that I think we should look at. And when I talk about not reinventing wheels, we may not need to reinvent that one. We may just take, you know, our own inventory. We would have to have our own list, but we may be able to incorporate that or upload that into 211 and then perhaps influence them to make the search parameters a little bit more definitive.
Councillor Jackno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. When you were putting together the parameters to see what was crucial and dynamic and sort of the same in the many communities that you're dealing with, and the comment came out that homelessness was not really at the top of the heap. But what you did say was drug addiction, mental illness, and then homelessness. Now, those are all linked together, and I think they contribute to the homelessness problems that many are facing across not only, you know, the province, but across the country. And somehow those, you know, those issues have to be addressed together to come up with a solution. I just wanted to make that statement that looking at your, you know, your little circular charts, that it's a good way to garner information to see what's common, what isn't, and what's crucial within the community. So, you know, as you're aware, we're having some homelessness issues here as well. The municipality is trying to deal with it. And of course, you know, many of our neighbors that are near the homeless shelter or the area are not happy, and I can understand that. But the ideal is to come up with a solution and not just to say, well, that's kind of the way it is. We have to come up with a solution that'll be good for everyone. And I also just want to say that your remarkable recovery is probably based on some of the training you had with the OPP. And I think that gives you the will to go on. I know the RCMP training, military training, when you think things are down and out, you just don't give up. Congratulations. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you. Well, you know, I keep quoting podcasts. I listen to a lot of, if I'm doing the dishes or whatever, I like to try and put new information into this noggin of mine. And I was listening to something recently. This guy teaches psychology at Harvard, and he walked into the room and day one and said, "How many people have heard of PTSD?" And of course, every hand goes up, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And then he said, "How many people have heard of PTG?" No hands went up. It stands for post-traumatic growth. He went on to say, this is a psychology teacher at Harvard, that the likelihood is equal. So there's a 50-50 likelihood that after being exposed to a traumatic event, that you'll either develop a disorder or you'll experience post-traumatic growth. In other words, and my little thing is don't just survive, thrive. In other words, you become a better version of yourself. So you think about these Chinese bowls that they when they're broken, apparently they put them back together and they use gold to fill in the cracks. And you see these all around as coffee table ornaments as a metaphor for what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because the bowl is actually stronger where the gold has been filled in the cracks than any other part of the bowl. And so I like to think that I'm on the PTG track here. But the key, he said, was the likelihood is only 50-50 if you're someone who knows that growth is a possibility. If the only thing you've been told is that you're likely to develop a disorder, there's a placebo effect that kicks in. Again, this isn't me. This is a Harvard psychology professor saying this. He said, you need to be aware. So one of the things that we could be doing is making people aware about this idea that, growth can come from adversity. And so thank you for that, Councillor Giacono. And I just wanted to make sure 100% clear. So you're right. In the homelessness group, it got ranked low, but I meant to stop and highlight when I had the slide up, when I showed you the summary of the results. Access to appropriate housing was scored as very high. So people obviously paid close attention and said, well, I don't know that many people that are completely without a home, but I know a lot of people that are inappropriately housed and should be living in better circumstances. So that was almost red circles across the board. So, the 9 municipalities do see appropriate housing as a high priority issue. I just wanted to clarify that.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you personally for your commitment and drive, and we wish you all the best in your health, and for sticking with this. And I really like how the plan's laid out. And can you comment on the community connection champions? I think that's a great move to have eyes and ears on the ground. All things related to community safety and well-being. Members from different sectors of the community, and to report to council as well as the advisory committee. I just want to commend you for that. That's a really good move. That's so important in the community, especially with everything that we are dealing with here. Drug addiction, homelessness, and the lot, and all things you've identified. So can you comment further on that?
Sure. So the idea, it comes from Ontario's mobilization and engagement model of community policing. It comes from the philosophy behind community safety and well-being planning, and it's behind the government's decision to place community safety and well-being planning squarely at the feet of municipal councils. And initially everyone's reaction was, hey, wait a minute, community safety, isn't this a policing issue? And it is, but what we've learned, we've come full circle since Sir Robert Peel's principles that are now, I think, 100 and maybe 81 years old. This idea that the people are the police and the police are the public, and that community safety is everyone's responsibility. So what we need is to cultivate that type of thinking amongst a group of our citizens who are interested in, addressing those issues and being points of connection. And it doesn't always have to be something that's really chronic. I'll give you an example. There's a cafe in the town of Napanee, and run by a lovely woman named Elena. And Elena says, yeah, I run a cafe, but I don't really see that as my role. I'm a connector of people. And so when I went in there one day and she says, hey, Pat, what's going on? And I told her about it. I have a son who wants to go to law school. He's thinking about maybe trying to go in the UK. And she said, you know who you need to talk to? You need to introduce your son to this person over here. He's the son of a lawyer in town. He just finished law school over in the United Kingdom. He'd be an excellent person to talk. She connected the two of them. They became friends. During his first summer home, after his first year of law school, the son invited him to apply for a summer job at the law firm, which he got. Well, guess what? He's got his law degree. We're waiting for his call to the bar, and he works full time at that law firm in Napanee for Bruce Cowell and his son. All as a result of a person who saw their role not as a cafe owner, but as a connector of human beings. And so this doesn't have to happen on the level of people wanting to be lawyers. This can be, you think about the grind and the connections that could take place there. Yeah, what you need is to connect with this person over here. And so many community safety and well-being issues can be addressed at a real grassroots level. And these folks, and some of them should be folks with lived experience who are very close to where the risk factors are most prevalent, who can say, there's an expression, nothing about me without me. And so the government's legislation even says when you go to implement something, you shall consult these certain groups. Now, we weren't able to do that during COVID, but we're going to do that going forward. So before the advisory committee would implement a new strategy, let's say it relates to mental health, we're going to find some folks with lived experience to sit on that implementation strategy committee to provide a real voice. And Cormac Russell would say, if you're really embracing this paradigm, then if that person with lived experience isn't at the meeting, you should almost be at a point where you go, we're going to have to cancel the meeting because that person's voice is so important. We can't move ahead without it. And in most police training facilities right now, the training as it relates to responding to mental health calls for service is influenced and sometimes even conducted by people who've had exposure to mental health issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more questions or comments, again, I want to thank you, Pat. I look forward to seeing this evolve, come to us in December of 2024. You have a good night.
Okay, and I just wanted one more time to say thank you because truly I believe your patience is more impressive than my will to live. I really believe that. So thank you. It meant a lot to me. It really did.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, cheers. Night.
Okay, next we have a movie update presentation.
So a movie is being filmed in Pembroke for a few months and will continue for another few months. Anna Mary Burke Grattan, a producer with Lutz Cousins Films, is in attendance and will provide us with an update on the filming within the city. Anna Mary is a Pembroke resident and has been instrumental over the years to assist our local television station in achieving their success. So I welcome Anna Mary Burke Grattan.
Anna Mary, come on down. Anna Mary and I worked for many years at the local television station together. You might say we grew up together, pretty much. Welcome, Anna Mary.
Thank you very much, Councillor Giacono, for inviting me here tonight. First off the bat, on behalf of Brian Lutz, the writer, director, actor, and president of Lutz Cousins Films, he truly wants to thank the city of Pembroke for all that you've done over the last couple of years to help him make his movies. I think his first movie was shot about 6 years ago. 2 years ago, we had Painted Sharks, and now Brian has returned for another 4 months to shoot another movie here. The whole idea of coming back to the city of Pembroke really reinforces the fact that the city of Pembroke and the people of Pembroke and surrounding areas are so supportive. It makes his job a lot easier to go into a town and say, hey, can we use your house on your street because it looks beautiful? Or can we use this business because we're looking for the perfect gym area. We're looking for the perfect this, that, or the other thing. It really is a statement for the people of Pembroke and the Ottawa Valley that people are so receptive. And I know Brian has often said that, he doesn't, come up with these scientific inventions that make the world a better place, but I always tell him it's that smile on that little girl's face who's like the extra in the movie, or it's the business person that, says, oh, there's my business and there's my credit at the end of the movie. Or, there's just so many things that benefit people, and especially like after the pandemic, seeing your street on a big screen. Those things that are a sense of pride and accomplishment do have weight, not maybe as weighty as, finding, the next best invention. But I think, he deserves an awful lot of credit to go ahead and do these things. Brian Lutz is originally from the Ottawa area. He is Canadian, and he does have property outside of Ottawa. And he also has property in LA, because that's where the business part and where he spends 6 months of the year editing his movies. So if you go on to Lutz Cousins Films, you'll find out a little bit more about the company. But basically, he's a Canadian who's a proud Canadian, and I think it shows in the movies. I was going to bring a trailer tonight, but things got a little busy, and we've been shooting for about 2 weeks now. We started in Smiths Falls about 2 weeks ago with a 14-hour day shoot, which I was glad I could keep up with, kind of. So, yeah, we started there. Predominantly, we're shooting it in Pembroke and surrounding area. Thursday night, we're at the Commonwealth Building. I am so excited that I was able to get that property for one of our scenes in our movie. So Thursday night, we're there with antique cars and bikers, and the movie's set in the 80s, so you can just picture, just the beautiful vehicles and the bikes and the clothing and the hair and everything like that. Sunday, we're at the Kinsman Pool, and we're not shooting in the pool, but we're shooting the change room and the reception area. We've shot on my street last weekend. We're shooting at Fellows for at least 3 days, and then likely one other school for an exterior, and then another school out of town for another scene. And then we move on. I don't have a whole list, but we have an awful lot of shoots in the area. Several years ago, I was on a house tour at the Dobbs residence, and of course, anybody who's been there is just totally blown away by their facility, by their home. So I remember that, and then when we're looking for an executive style home for a couple of the scenes, I thought, I've been on a house tour and I know exactly where we need to go. And the Dobbs are just so gracious and welcoming. And, right away, when we visited in January, they said, oh yes, we'd love to be a part of it. So it's people like that. It's people like Cameron Montgomery, who's another producer with myself, and along with a lot of other volunteers in the area, are helping to make this happen. It's truly a big effort on everybody's part. We're a volunteer cast and crew because to get to the $50 million blockbusters, it takes a lot of time and effort and funding as well. So Brian has one of his movies streaming now in the US and Germany, and then he will be bringing on more and more. And as things progress, then that'll happen as well. But I know even from Painted Sharks, he had comments from people, where did you shoot that? Pembroke. So, I mean, there's so much value to everybody involved, and it's just nice to be able to come here tonight and say thank you. I know Brian said that, when I first started working on Painted Sharks a couple of years ago, the city of Pembroke has been awesome to me. And it's not just, somebody saying, oh, I should say this. He truly means it. And I'd like to also thank the city of Pembroke, Sarah Fredericks and Jordan DeRoche, and Councillor Lafreniere for helping me get, into securing the Kinsman Pool location for one of our shoots. It takes so many people to put, even one scene together, let alone 40 scenes and, a 2.5-hour movie. So, hats off to everyone associated with the city, the people, all my neighbors. I get to meet, sometimes you don't meet your neighbors, so I got to meet my neighbors quite well 2 years ago, and they actually had us, welcomed us back last weekend to do another shoot. So, there's so many things to be thankful for. And I just like to say, and I think it reinforces the previous speaker, like, there's so many opportunities out there, and it's not necessarily, this is a money transaction. There's so many opportunities out there. We were standing outside the public library, and Councillor Jacquinot came along and said, "Hey, Anna Mary, what are you doing?" And that interest and that enthusiasm led me to tell him about what I was doing. And I was like, oh, well, people should know that. And people are really totally blown away. Like, I know the last movie, the star of the movie, young teenage girl, said, "I didn't know they shot movies in my hometown," So, I mean, it's an opportunity for people to be involved, to get engaged, to meet your neighbors. I mean, I've had such wonderful experiences talking to the local drama teachers, because we need a lot of students for the scenes at Fellows High School. And, who do you contact? Contact the drama teachers, because they know who the students are that like to act, and then you bring other people on as well. But their enthusiasm, their dedication to teaching is just, it's something to be marveled. So we really enjoy shooting here. It's such a team effort, and Brian's cousin Ted, he's part of Lute's Cousins Films. He's from Carlton Place. So there's a lot of Valley connections here, and we're just happy to be able to do that. We're, like I said, tomorrow night we're at Commonwealth Building, and then sometime in August we're at a warehouse in Petawawa to shoot the interior of that scene of the movie. Because usually if there's an exterior, there's an interior, and generally they don't tend to be the same place. So it's a lot of effort to get one scene, because you're outside, inside, but it's two locations. So it is, it's very involved. So I mean, when you watch a movie at home, it's like, oh, and it's like, okay. But if you're there and you think, I need that 80s prop, and I've been like searching places and looking for different things, and it's so cool what you find. I found one set of like table and chairs that this flea market, and Ryan said, "Oh," I said, "Yeah, I got the table." "You got the table? And the matching chairs?" I said, "Yeah, I got the matching chairs." He's like just ballistic, It's those little things that make you so happy. And I mean, I don't think you could put a dollar value on that, or, just the sense of accomplishment. And anybody who's been involved in any productions, I know a few of you around here, the table have, it's that drive and that, excitement that you get from being part of something. And I'm just glad that the city of Pembroke is so welcoming, because it is an awesome experience for everybody.
Well, thank you, Anna Mary. You're certainly a good ambassador for our community, and I've been following your travels, so to speak, adventures, since you got involved. Is there any questions of Anna Mary? Oh, Deputy Mayor, then Councillor Jacquinot.
Well, I just want to thank Anna Mary, and we were joking when I said hello to you tonight, that you and I were in the Irish play together.
Yes, we were.
Years ago, and that was a lot of fun. And you were heavily involved then, and then at the CHRO also.
Right.
So I want to thank you and then all your group for bringing the movie to Pembroke. And
Yes. The movie is entitled Pictures of Us, and it's set in the 80s, and it's a gritty story of a love triangle with teens. And we started shooting, like I said, a couple of weeks ago. We'll finish shooting in September, and then after that, then Brian edits and then redubs in audio. And we would expect maybe late next summer or early fall, then there'll be a closed kind of release. Last time we did a release, or like a cast and crew party in Ottawa for a showing there, and then came back to Pembroke the next night to do a showing here for the local people, because there's so many local people
Right.
involved. So that would be probably the same plan again, that 15 months from now, 16 months from now, there'd be, the event in Ottawa, and then followed by the event here in Pembroke. So
Well, that's
it's pretty
great.
exciting, red
Look-
carpet. And
yeah, oh, for sure.
pictures.
That's wonderful. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Councillor Jacquinot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to recognize yourself and your technical ability to be a great motivator when you were at the new RO and you were in production facilities and making commercials. And Anna Mary was kind of running the show with Mike Keller, who was the station manager. Mike was instrumental in, he sat on the board of directors for Algonquin College. He always promoted the community, and it's because of people like him that we see the advancement. And for that, I think that's why Anna Mary never retired. She always said, I wanted something to do, I'm just not going to stop. All of us have been influenced by movies. When you're a young child or even as an adult, there are things in film industry that will move you as a person, something that will connect with you, with your psyche, or, will pull at your heartstrings or bring back a memory of when you were a youth. I can remember seeing Steven Spielberg's movie. It was called Tintin, and it was based on a cartoon character. And I was on this council a number of years prior to this, and I went to see the movie, and my wife says, well, why are you going to go and see a movie about a cartoon character? And I said to her, when I was a little boy, I went to the Pembroke Library, and in the children's section, there was a book called Tintin. And I think it was a French, it was developed in France and then brought to Canada. It was cartoonish. And the little Tintin character had, well, I don't have any, but he had a lock of hair that curled up. And the message within the book was aimed at children and about philosophy and kindness and what would happen to you as a child and as an adult. So it moved me. I went to the theater and I sat there and I was just awe-inspired by Spielberg's genius, of course. So I wrote him a letter. I wrote Steven Spielberg a letter, and I said that to you when we met, and I got an answer. I just told him, how something that minute to a young person, seeing the library book and then seeing the movie. So obviously, he must have been moved by that too, as a child. Anyway, congratulations, and I just hope this will develop into something bigger for Renfrew County and Pembroke. We could be the film studio north of Ontario of Canada. Why not? There's a Hollywood, California. Why not a Hollywood, Pembroke? Thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll leave some business cards here, or if anybody wants to go to info@lutescousinsfilms.com, LUTESFILMS, cousins, COUSINS.com.
Madam Chair, extras. Are you looking for extras?
That's exactly.
They said it was young people, sorry, Councillor Jackno. It was a young person triangle. Sorry, I'm out of order here.
If anybody's interested, we do post on Facebook, but info@lutescousinsfilms.com. You can get your headshot in and your information. But yes, we're still looking for people. We're probably still looking for a few more vintage cars for Thursday night, or who knows what we're looking for. If it's 80s, we're looking for it. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, thank you, Anna Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we have an OPP update.
Inspector Neufeld from the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP is in attendance to provide us an update on communications regarding the recent event that occurred in the city of Pembroke. And I welcome Inspector Neufeld.
Welcome, Inspector.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I will apologize to council in advance. I regret today I was preoccupied with an incident that is still unfolding up on the Garrison property, and I did spend the day there. So I regret I did not have the opportunity to prepare anything more formal for council. However, I am here to answer what questions I can ask, or I can answer, and provide a little bit of the update. So on the 22nd of May, 2023, in the 500 block of McKay Street, we were met with a very, well, I'll say an unprecedented incident in the city of Pembroke. It was a, what almost was a triple murder, which is unprecedented for the city. We have since determined that this was a targeted incident in our community between individuals that are involved in the drug trafficking world. So as this is still a very active investigation, I'll provide what I can. I'll answer what I can. But again, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this is still very active, very ongoing, with still many moving parts, and I would never want to risk compromising that. When I received that call that morning, we had two confirmed individuals deceased and a third individual with serious life-threatening injuries. In incidents, any homicide investigations, they immediately default to our criminal investigations branch, which are detective inspectors that are, this is what they do. This is their sole purpose, is to investigate high risk, or not, high level incidents which homicides would fall under their purview. So immediately an investigator is assigned from our headquarters because this was the seriousness of the investigation and the violence attached to it and the possibility that suspects were still in the area. In addition to a criminal investigator, we have a critical incident investigator. I know the OPP is very big on its acronyms. A CIC, who is going to determine what sort of police response is going to be provided in a tactical fashion. So based on that information, we immediately mobilized our emergency response team. What the public and most people do not see is throughout that incident, although we had many uniform officers at the scene going door to door, there was a rapid response team on standby within the city that was ready to deploy should. They determined, I guess, fairly quickly that these subjects had fled the scene. That's not to say that there couldn't have been somebody lurking or missed their ride out of town, so to speak. So we had a rapid response team prepared to respond should there have been an additional threat. One thing I will say about the OPP is for any major incident, we have the resources to front load an investigation very quickly. And that is exactly what we did. For the benefit of council and the members of the public, there were north of 50 investigators, specialists, detectives, forensic identification service, which is like our CSI investigators, in addition to our regular uniform members, our own local crime unit, our local street crime unit, who were of course, reaching out to all their contacts and all their informants in the city to try to start piecing together what happened. Subsequent to that, I was very pleased to learn that they had identified very early on in the investigation a suspect whom we then were able to, and I don't want to get into their methods, but he was tracked to the city of Ottawa and subsequently arrested. I'll, at this time, certainly thank the members of council, but in particular, Mayor Gervais for his support at our press release, for standing shoulder to shoulder with us when we did the press release to announce to the community that we did have a person in custody. In addition to that is great news for the community. That is only step one. There's still a lengthy court process that will happen. This person is still innocent until proven guilty. These are allegations only at this time. And there are still other individuals that we are, persons of interest that we are still looking at. So this is still very much an active investigation. That subject would have been interviewed. We actually have if any of you saw the interview of the colonel that was done by one of our interviewers, so we have forensic interviewers that this is their bread and butter. They are trained to get information from you. That suspect that we had arrested was interviewed. I won't tell you any of the details of that, but this is still very much an ongoing investigation. There is, in our opinion, no additional threat to the community, and one of my questions to the inspector that handled the tactical side of it, because I know the lessons learned from the Nova Scotia incident in Portapique, was there should there have been a blast out to the community, like an emergency blast out. When I inquired with him, there is a criteria that is established in the province for those to be released to the community. Based on the information that he was provided at that time by the detectives, it did not meet the threshold for a blast out to the community, other than they deemed it, they would do a social media blast out, which some people say, well, not everybody get, that is true. When they do an Amber Alert, everybody gets that, but not everybody looks for it. So, I mean, and what his biggest takeaway was this was very early on, had the appearance of a targeted incident and not an active shooter incident, which would incorporate more of the randomness, you know, somebody walking down the main drag shooting indiscriminately versus somebody specific to that residence cause a criminal offense. So that is about the update I can provide at this time, unless there is something more specific than I can assist council with.
If I could, through the chair, and I'm not sure you can answer any of my questions, were the victims residing in Pembroke? I know they were not local individuals, but were they living in Pembroke?
No, they were not.
Okay, so they were just visiting.
They were visiting in the community, yes.
Thank you. Something else I just want to say that's very unfortunate in this day and age, but often social media knows what's happening in the community before there's really anything out there. Like, people have scanners, they pick up OPP calls, and that could be very scary for our residents. I know an incident happened the night before the homicides. An incident happened on my street, and we had to call the OPP because it happened in front of my house, and that was the stabbing. That was scary. And what really scared me was the fact that it was all over Facebook. And my son contacted me from Rockland and said, "Are you guys okay?" Like, we're like, "How did you know?" Social media already. I know there's confidentiality that happens when there's incidents like this. And what is social media? Like, it comes into play, it makes us feel, as politicians, like we should know more than we do. You know, like, people will say, well, did they get him? And I'm like, I don't know. So because we made the call that night, is there some kind of reporting mechanism? I assume they got the guy because there was a stabbing and he took off. But is there no report back to the individual that made the call, such as ourselves? I mean, we're okay now. I mean, obviously, I think they did make an arrest. I'm not sure, though. But is there some kind of report? Because it kind of left us uneasy for a couple of days.
Yeah, well, I'll speak to this incident, and
Yes.
I'll touch on your incident.
Okay.
So when it comes to this incident, so my role as detachment commander, or chief of police, if you will, is the protocol is I notify immediately my boss, the police service board chair, who also happens to be mayor. So under the previous council, under the previous mayor, it went to the police service board chair, who then advised the mayor. In this case, it's one of the same person. So he is looped in very quickly to know certainly if there's an ongoing threat to the community, if there's any safety precautions that the community should be taking that we would be encouraging, et cetera, et cetera. So that is done on a regular basis, and he releases the information when we have our conversations. He is looped in immediately, and I tell him this is not for publication. There will be a release coming down the road when we can, right?
Yes.
Like, sometimes investigations are very active, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we live in the day of social media, right? Everybody wants to be that first person to post something. Everybody wants the likes, right?
Yeah.
In a police investigation, the short answer is I don't care. We'll release the information when we have it, when it's been vetted properly. If somebody wants to get likes, fill your boots. That's not coming from the OPP, and it's not coming from the mayor's office.
Thank you, because I know, yeah, I was getting some inquiries about the homicides.
And I say this with all due respect, at the end of the day, when it came to the homicide, you're a resident. And I totally respect your position on council, but you are a resident, and you'll get that information when everybody else gets the information. Maybe a little bit sooner,
Yeah.
but not
No,
much
thank you.
sooner.
No, that's fine.
Not
And
much sooner.
I
You
don't
know?
think the public understands that. You know, I think they think because we sit
Yeah,
around the
I mean,
table, we know
that's-
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and lots
Yeah.
of people do rely on social media. I mean, the good news is social media is never wrong or lies, right? So, in regards to your specific, and I don't want to put your business on the street, so I'll high level. Certainly, sometimes people call and they say, "Don't call me back. Don't come over to my house. I'm leaving my lights off." They don't want people to know that they called the police. Other people sometimes do want to close the loop, if you will, and the officers should be doing that. It doesn't happen all the time, unfortunately. It should be happening. And there are other incidents where the caller is an actual witness to the incident, and we need to get a statement from him or her. So it kind of varies, right? So I'll say this: if they did not close the loop with you, then that's on me, and I apologize.
Problem, except, thank you. I understand you're busy doing lots of things, and
That doesn't preclude, and that can go in the minutes, that doesn't preclude if somebody does have, if they did call the police and they want to know, hey, I'd like to know, I called in that drunk driver, was he or she actually drunk? Yeah, we can provide, that. More than likely, the officer should have
okay.
closed the loop and done
Thank
that.
you.
So it doesn't hurt to ever call and just say, I would like to know what happened.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions of the inspector? Councillor Purcell.
Thank you for your report, Inspector Newfield. In terms of, I know you talked a little bit about lessons learned in regards to, the social media component, and releasing the information when it's available and it's accurate and correct. I know that I received many calls from concerned residents in regards to their safety. Looking back in terms of it's always better after lessons learned, right? We always can go back and look and see how things we can do better. Was there any other opportunity that we missed in regards to communicating to the residents of Pembroke that, not so much the details of the incident, but their safety and that police are engaged and there are provisions in place to protect residents from harm. And I think just having those reassurances over that weekend would have been, I think, beneficial for some individuals because
Sure.
I think that's just a lessons learned. And I just need to understand a little bit more about, is there who's engaged in the crisis management team when something happens in regards, because I know that you report that to the police board chair, which is rightfully so the mayor. I'm just wondering in terms, do we have, I know we have emergency management, but in terms of crisis management, do we have a standing group of individuals that can make decisions on the fly and that can put out timely communications? Is that something that we do have, I guess? Is my question to the mayor.
So I'm not familiar with what it is that you're requesting. In the past, and it hasn't changed, what would happen is if an incident arose, and they do happen from time to time, in the past what would happen is I would get a phone call, I would loop in the mayor and then also the CAO so that the three would understand or know what's transpiring. But as I've always appreciated it, when something arises, as particularly if there's an investigation ongoing, is that limited information is provided so that it doesn't affect the ability of the investigation. Early on, we can speak to this particular incident. Early on, I was informed that that there was an issue. It's a report would be forthcoming from the OPP, a media release. And so until such time as the media release is forthcoming, basically we're trying to get a handle on what exactly is going on, because in this particular instance, it was I forget the inspector just used the word, but it was active, it was unfolding, and until such time as there was a handle on exactly what was taking place, let's just wait. I can tell you that CBC, gotta love CBC. CBC was contacting me, and it was, we need to get an awareness as to exactly what is taking place. But unlike the situation with the fire department, and I know that Councillor Plummer is the chair in terms of emergency management, I'm unaware of any type of committee or anything.
If I can just add on to that, if there are ratepayers that are asking questions, to follow OPP East Region Twitter, because that's where the information is going to be coming. That's what will be coming out immediately.
Okay.
And yeah, and failing that, I mean, especially in a situation like that, they need to double, triple check their information before anything goes out, especially in an active homicide investigation, let alone a double homicide. So they're not in a rush to put out anything in the media.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, better for worse. And because that is a criminal investigative branch decision, I don't have any influence. I can't say, hey, you know what? My community wants to know what's going on now. They don't care. This is their homicide investigation.
Correct.
They will release it when they are ready.
I don't think they really want to know what's going on. They just want to know, are they at risk?
Yeah.
That's the concern. It's not so much about the
And
details
the,
in terms of the investigation or anything that
And
would-
again, how it was explained to me was it didn't meet the threshold to put out the blast out to everybody's phone. And it was an interesting analogy that he used. He says, it's like anything else. I do see people calling 911 when they get an Amber Alert on their phone at night. Like they just ignore it. Whereas if it gets sent out too much, like, hey, there might be a risk, it gets watered down, if you will. So they are very careful that it meets the threshold before they send it a blast out to everybody's phone to shelter in place, which would be the term that they would use. And many times when they do send out the notification, people still don't listen to it. And they go, oh, there's something going on at the 500 block? Let's go take a look. Well, no, I told you to shelter in place.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
I mean, it is what it is, if I can use that cliche. If there is a risk to public safety, that blast out will be going out to everybody's phone.
It's reassuring. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more questions, I want to thank you, Inspector. I
Thank you
know
so
that you
much
have the
for having
best
me.
interest of our community at heart, and thank
I
you.
apologize, I couldn't make the last council meeting. I was out of country, in fact. So I apologize for the delay on this. If I can just say again how this is very much still an active investigation with progress being made.
Good.
And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you so
evening.
much for your time. Have a good evening.
Okay, next under new business, I'll call Jordan DeRoche from Parks and Recreation up. Thank you. And the first item would be enhanced park signage. Jordan.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening. All right, the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Committee adopt a sign concept to replace existing signage throughout the city in park and playground facilities. So I think probably the easiest thing to do here is I'll just speak to the report as I'm going through the actual PowerPoint slide deck. And you'll see here just with the first slide, so this is our existing facility, signage that we currently have in some of our facilities. So the sign on our left is some entrance signage that we have down at Riverside Park. And we have similar signage throughout the city. And I do believe that this signage was installed somewhere in and around the year 2000. So it is approaching approximately 25 years old now. And you may not be able to tell by the actual pictures there, but I mean, you know, of course, paint is fading and whatnot. It's showing its age for sure. The sign on the right is our playground signage. So this signage here, just visually, obviously, it's not exactly too pretty. You know, showing signs of wear and age and whatnot. The other thing I wanted to point out too is, I don't know if you can see it or not. I'll just grab my laser pointer here if I can. Right if it'll reach. Kind of right at the bottom of that one paragraph. It says Parks and Facilities section. So we haven't had the Parks and Facilities section as a department since 2015. Also, too, at the very bottom, just with our number and extension, anything that is being reported, it's going to the wrong department. So we just kind of want to clean that up. We thought it'd be an appropriate time to kind of move forward to some kind of signage. Next slide, please. So there are three concepts that we are proposing here. So part of the 2023 budget deliberations, the department had budgeted $5,000 for sign design and concepts only. And what we're hoping to do is look at some kind of a concept that we can obtain for this year and look at moving to installation next year. So deciding on what council likes or doesn't like, we can take that, get the actual signage and start getting some costings put together. The good news is that the smaller signage that you see are actually some playground and park signs, and we're hoping that we can actually start utilizing some of the operational expenses from our budget, that we can hopefully maybe start implementing those in 2023. One other thing that I want to note too is that if you look at concept number 1 and concept number 2, they actually do feature the city's color code. So concept 3 does not. This was the design that came back from our designers, and we left it as is. But if the city wanted to, or the council rather, wanted to ensure that we are following the proper color code, we can certainly implement that as well. Next slide, please. So the first concept design that we have here, I guess the only way that I like to describe this one is kind of more conservative. It's kind of sleek and slender, has more of a vertical look to it. It is, the sign does showcase itself on both sides, so there is a reverse side as you can see. And the picture to the right is actually the sign in place at Riverside Park. There's also 2 other signs that kind of mirror or mimic the actual entryway signage, which is our park and playground rules. Can you just go to the next slide, please? So I just put these on a separate slide just to make sure that you could see them in full. And something that we wanted to do as we implemented these signs was to incorporate universal symbols. And as we're a growing community, we want to be a welcoming community. So as far as welcoming people to our community that might have language barriers and whatnot, the obvious thing here is that we know that people can certainly relate to symbols a lot better sometimes than text. So we wanted to make sure that we got that on there. We have gone through some of the different symbols and some of the different texts and whatnot to make sure that we capture as much as we can. Some of the items that have come up over the past, we've kind of made note of them to make sure that we can get them into our park and playground rules. Next slide, please. So for our second concept here, again, there is a reverse side to this. I'd like to kind of describe this one more of a modern look. And this one here kind of, I guess you could say, kind of brings us more into the year 2023. And it's got the sleek look again, kind of similar to the concept number 1, but it has a bit of a more of a modern feel to it. Next slide, please. Again, these are the park and playground rules. Everything is the same from the concept number 1. It just, the design itself mimics the entryway sign. So the last concept here is a sign that I would classify more of a kind of a standard sign, so it's a little bit wider. Kind of mimics or represents the current Riverside Park sign that is the existing signage that's down there at Riverside Park right now. Like I had mentioned, the color code is not the same. I would suggest that if council did like this concept, that we would move towards the color code that the city does have. And as far as the bright yellow colors, as far as staff's interest in these, we did find that they were a little distracting, so it'd be something else that maybe we would want to consider should we change any color if this is a concept that council likes. And next slide, please. And I just wanted to leave council with a small quote, and it just reads, "A community's appearance is the most telling sign of its own pride." And this comes from the book, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. And if any council member has not read it, it's a short, quick, and easy read, and I would certainly suggest anyone to read the book. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Jordan. Councillor Plummer?
Thank you, Chair. I'm in favor of, I guess it would be concept number 2, which for the Pembroke signage, I'm not sure what, if we're here to vote tonight or just give direction to come back. So I'm just putting my vote behind concept 2.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we want to get an idea of what the councillors prefer when it comes to design colors. I have a question, but I'll wait till everyone else's. Councillor Jackno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Drochet. Will the sign be lit? And is there any indication of using perhaps a solar mechanism to illuminate it at night? I'm just curious.
So through the chair, no, we don't have any intention of lighting the sign. So it would be replacing the existing signage that we have through our entryways to the parks. Same with the playground, so there wouldn't be any lighting. Now, what we could look at is some sign designs when we go to that stage and we get it printed. There is reflective material that they use in the signs, so that as people are approaching the area or whatever, it would light up in their headlights of their vehicles. So it is something that we could consider.
Just, traveler new in the community, he's looking for the trailer park. It may be difficult, the blue color, unless you have some reflective paint, which is good. And also, my last question, Madam Chair, is there some sort of a mechanism to put in insert a sign closed for the season, as opposed to having one painted over, or how do you indicate that they're closed?
Yeah, so that would be an extra piece that would be added to the sign. So currently, right now, down at Riverside Park, as an example, we have a separate sign that hangs on the bottom that says that we're closed for the season.
Number 2 as well, Madam Chair.
Mayor, and then Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, just want to say that I'm really pleased to see a modernization of the signs. As you've pointed out, the signs we've had is for a very long time. On the weekend, I decided to go for a tour down to Westmeath, Beachburg, and so forth, and went in Whitewater. I noticed that they had new signage pointing to their industrial park and other areas, and it for a person that's traveled that road many, many times, it was refreshed. It was something new, and it caught my eye. And for myself to catch on to it, having driven that way so many different times, it was eye catching. So I have no issue with concept 2. The only other comment that I would make is for consideration about the QR code, if possible, to identify what is in the particular park, i.e. Riverside Park. I know you got a number of different symbols, but some people use the QR code with their smartphone and are able to identify different things as well.
Councillor Keel?
I'll be quick. Also partial to number 2, rather dislike number 3. I'd be fine with number 1.
May I speak from the chair? Oh, Deputy Mayor first.
Thanks. Well, my favorite color is yellow, but I guess that's out, so they're not city color. But no, I think it's great. We talked about the Kinsman Multi-Sports Court a few weeks ago, and you told me you were coming together with this proposal. So would this be something that would be on the sports court, or is that that's a side issue?
Yeah, so once we develop the concept or get the concept, then we can start tackling the different signage throughout the city. So I'm hoping that the smaller signage, so the rules and whatnot, that we could take a look at our operating budget and we can start pulling there. I will have to get quotes because I was waiting to see what concept the council was going to choose, and then I can quote based on that.
Right. And you prefer personally, or the staff prefer, just, when we do put a sign on the sports court or any other facility like that, tennis court, you're going to keep the same colors?
That is correct, yes.
Okay,
We want to be consistent. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Purcell.
Sure. In terms of the rules, like in terms of the symbols that you have, and no smoking, stoop and poop, poop and stoop, stoop and poop, those types of things, can they also just be at the bottom of the sign? Because those things kind of change periodically. So I like the one banner at the bottom of the sign that has that, because I know that we're talking about maybe implementing a smoking and vaping bylaw that could change some of those parameters in regards to the signage. Also, kind of to build on Deputy Mayor Abdallah's thought, is there also a way to incorporate the activities that are hosted in that park as a sign, like tennis, baseball, camping, those kinds of things as well?
So through the chair, yeah, we can certainly do that. The thing with your signage is that if we post a sign that say we want to include a symbol for tennis, that changes the cost, right? Because it becomes an individual printed sign. Versus if we have a sign design that encompasses everything, then it's a cheaper cost, right? So, but we can certainly look at it. I can certainly price it out, and then depending on the cost and whatnot, we can certainly consider it.
So I have a question about one of the park rules, and I just want clarification, and that is the no alcohol in all municipal parks. So we know that Riverside Park has campers, and I would guess that a lot of them have alcohol. So they're excluded from these rules when it comes to being on their campsite? That's one question. The second question is, I know Ford, quite a few years ago, came out with a policy in regards to tailgating parties and that kind of thing about alcohol in public spaces, as long as they're not driving. So I'm questioning how that comes to play with this. So I'll let you think about that. And my third one, and you can summarize everything for me, is this sign double-sided? Because I know that the entrance to the park, I know it's the east side. But can you see the sign if you're coming from the west, is my question. Because we all know where it is, but if you're coming from Petawawa or something, maybe you don't see the sign. And I know everybody has GPSs and that, but if we were going to use that as an excuse not to have a double-sided sign, why have a sign at all? So those are my questions.
So I think hopefully I got them all. As far as the signage is being double-sided, yes. So they are. So in the PowerPoint, there is just a little section where it just shows the reverse on it. So they are double-sided for sure. As far as drinking in our parks and our facilities, so the campground will be separate. So these are strictly for like our playground rules, as an example. So we don't want alcohol in and around the playgrounds. The separate park sign would be, for example, if you go down to Pansy Patch Park, there's no playgrounds down there, so we wanted to have a separate sign that we could post down there for strictly just parks. So this wouldn't be posted in our campgrounds, so we wouldn't have to worry about trying to monitor people and whatnot, because we don't. You're right. Like if somebody comes in, I mean it's their home. Like as long as they're not being they're following the rules and whatnot, they can certainly consume alcohol. So these would not be posted in the campgrounds.
Further to that, if someone is asking permission to have an event in one of our parks, they would request special permission to maybe have their own license to serve alcohol, right?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the consensus is, and I like the light blue, the two-tone as well, so I think that's the consensus. I guess we can move forward. And I say replace all the signs as soon as we can. Dated. Thank you.
Sorry, just a point of order. Can I get a motion for that?
Okay, moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Okay. Next item, facility allocation policy.
All right, the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Committee approve a facility allocation policy for the use of the Parks and Recreation Department for the allocation of facility use. So a bit of background on this report. So we kind of have some exciting news, if council members don't already know. We recently awarded the RFP for the recreation booking software to Active Network. So we've actually just sat down and we've just started discussing plans and creating our timeline and whatnot to try and get this implemented. And so part of this, of course, online services is that users will be able to agree to terms and conditions electronically now, which is fantastic. So they can come in, they can book something online, they can accept all the terms and whatnot, and then they can continue on with their booking. So this is a really good opportunity for the department to work towards this service and provide these administrative services online. And the policy really is certainly going to be a guideline that will help identify the city's expectation with respect to usage of the facility, and it will serve as a guiding document for the future rental processes. So currently right now we do have some user group agreements that we have been using for the past several years. But we've only adopted that for ice rentals at this point in time. So this policy here will encompass everything that we book throughout the city. So it'll include our pool, it'll include our campgrounds and our ball diamonds and our soccer fields. So we wanted to try and establish a facility allocation policy while we're going through the process of this online booking service. We didn't really want to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. So we wanted to make sure that we were ticking our boxes off. So this was a really good opportunity for us to make sure that we can get this facility allocation put in place and then supported by council. Thank you.
Comments? From the chair, I just want to say, Jordan, you're doing a great job. These are things that we've wanted to see implemented, and I know you've been very busy getting everything organized. Thank you. Next, Music for a Cause.
All right, thank you.
Just a point of order, Madam Chair, can we get a motion for that as well? Because the
I'm sorry.
recommendation was that the committee approve a facility allocation
Okay, moved by
policy.
Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Purcell. All in favor? And please note that Councillor Keel has left the table for the next item. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Committee approve the serving of alcohol for the 2023 Music for a Cause at the Waterfront Park in keeping with the requirements of the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario for a caterer's endorsement and confirm that the event does not knowingly contravene any municipal bylaws. So a bit of background on this one. So we had a request from the Robbie Dean Centre to host Music for a Cause event, and this would be taking place July 29th from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And essentially the event, they approached us and they kind of thought this great idea that could happen down at the park, and they wanted to have an event that would feature 16 different bands. They were hoping to also have a variety of displays with bouncy castles, canine demonstrations. They also have the support of the Pembroke Fire Department, which would be providing a display. Same with the OPP. They were going to be getting the downtown businesses involved, having some additional food vendors, some wing eating contests and whatnot, and they still have some other events that they don't quite have confirmed at this point. But Board and Saucy, who is a locally owned restaurant, currently has a caterer's endorsement license, and of course, which is approved by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. And they have the ability with this license to extend their license. So it's kind of very similar to how we have a license, a liquor license at Bogey's Bar. Well, that license is only for that premise. So if we have something on the floor at the PMC, we have a caterer's endorsement license, we can extend it beyond that and down to the floor or into a park. So it's the same concept. The event coordinators will certainly have the appropriate fencing. So I do want to note that the bar is not going to be big. The intention is not to have a great big bar, but they will have a bar that will be fenced appropriately. They'll also have their security, and then anyone that's going to be serving alcohol, they'll also make sure that those people have their smart serve. I should also note that the intention of this event, although we're drawing attention to alcohol, the intentions here of the event is for all ages. And so, we don't want this report to be mistaken for kind of like a booze fest or a drunk fest or those kind of things. The event is really set up, and they really want to deliver it as an event that is really for all ages. And so, with the bar, they're hoping that it'll add a little bit of value, it'll add a little bit of interest, people can come down, and that if anyone wants or wishes to have a social drink, that they can do so. As far as the financial implications go, so the event is basically a normal event that would be booked at the Riverwalk Amphitheatre, so all the fees associated are in line with our user fee and charge bylaw. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, this is a great destination event, as I always say, for the Pembroke Waterfront Park, and Robbie Dean volunteers and staff always organize excellent events for the community. So I motion we approve the request to serve alcohol.
Any further comments? Or a seconder? Any comments first? Okay. Councillor Plummer?
Just second the motion.
Okay, I have the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So do I understand this correctly, that there's going to be an area that I might refer to as a beer garden, and then there, in the letter, it talks about 2 stages, but yet in your report, it's talking about the amphitheater. So I'm in favor of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to logistically try and figure out what it looks like. Where is it exactly in the terms of the waterfront? And I'm assuming that there's no charging because it's a family event or what have you. That there's people coming and going. So I'm just trying to figure that out, that we're not excluding other members of the public to the waterfront, and where is it?
So through the chair, yeah, that's a great question. So when we met with them, they were in the very early parts of their planning, but essentially they'll be utilizing the Riverwalk Amphitheater as stage one, and then they'll be setting up a secondary stage in that area. So the majority of the events are going to be taking place by the Riverwalk Amphitheater. The bar will also be set up there as well, because a lot of the music and the artists and whatnot that will be playing, they want to have the bar set up basically right next to it. So they'll be utilizing, I guess you could say, the west side of the park.
Any other comments? If I could speak from the chair. I just have a couple of questions in regards to, so we've got, is the bar going to be open at 11 a.m.?
I do think they plan on opening around the
11
noon hour.
a.m.
Yeah, the
to
lunch
9
hour.
p.m. And there is a public space. So I guess my only concern would be, we know a lot of individuals go down there with their kids and they're milling about. And if there's alcohol served with no specific, like beer gardens area, so we've got individuals maybe walking with a glass of wine or a beer from one location to the other band and milling about, while there's individuals there just doing what they always do down at the waterfront. That kind of, it seems like it's going to be taking up the whole space, is what I'm saying. What stops someone from having a beer and then walking over to the playground? I know in the past we always had a certain area for a beer garden. It wasn't just sort of open. And then I also wanted to know these individuals that will participate. And I think it's a good cause, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I'm just troubleshooting here. They're going to be using the same washrooms as all the other individuals that are just there having a family day at the park.
Yeah, so they will have the area blocked off, so there'll be fencing put up. It's going to be a small area, so it's not going to be a great big area. It's going to be a small area, and that does fall within the regulations that they're going to have to follow, right? So they have to separate that area to make sure that if they are serving alcohol, that they are serving, and that's where the security comes into place, and that's where the smart serve people also come into place. The way that they've explained it to us is that the back of the bar essentially is going to be kind of like the food area. So people can either get food from outside the fenced area, or those people that are consuming alcohol can also grab something from inside the area as well.
Thank you, and it does sound like a wonderful event. Thank you. So I guess we need a motion. Deputy Mayor? Oh, we did it already at the beginning of the discussion. Okay. So all in favor? Approved. Next is visitor information sign on Paul Martin Drive. And Councillor Keel has returned to the table.
In the absence of Mr. Unruh, I'm going to try to present his report for you. A report was presented to the Planning and Development Committee on June the 6th, and the approved motion was moved by Deputy Mayor Abdallah and seconded by Councillor Keel, that the Planning and Development Committee direct staff to remove the sign with the concrete base and wiring to remain in place, with Mr. Kenny to contribute $1,000 and the balance of the cost of the removal to be paid by the City of Pembroke. Mr. Kenny spoke afterwards with Deputy Mayor Abdallah and provided a copy of his correspondence dated February 7th, 2023. The written proposal was misinterpreted, and his offer was to pay $1,000 for a new frame and was not to offer to pay $1,000 to remove the existing sign. Mr. Kenny was not interested in contributing the $1,000 for the removal of the sign, so the matter is being brought back to committee for direction. However, after this report was written, Mr. Unruh received an email from Mr. Kenny on June the 16th, indicating that he would be willing to pay $500 of the costs to remove the sign if the city takes down the sign. So we're seeking committee direction at this time.
Comments? Deputy Mayor.
So I was speaking to Mr. Kenny after the motion was approved by council for $1,000, and he referred us to the, when he presented here a few months ago, about he was willing to pay $1,000 towards a sign on the Best Western side. But in talking with him again last week, he said the city staff were out looking at the sign last week, And I contacted Mr. Unruh, and Mr. Unruh said that the cost would be, you know, around between $900 and $1,200. And Mr. Unruh said to me, well, ask him if he'll pay, you know, up to $500 towards the cost. So I contacted Mr. Kenny, and I said, will you pay, if it's $900, will you pay half of that, $450, up to $500? And he agreed to that. So he sent the email to the CEO, Mr. Unruh. So I sent him, today I sent the CEO a motion, and I know we have to have a motion to reconsider, but it said, motion that Mr. Kenny will pay 50% of the sign removal to a maximum of $500. But before we do that motion, we need a motion to reconsider from the meeting 2 weeks ago.
Councillor Keel.
I move that we reconsider the prior motion.
I second.
Okay, we have a mover, Councillor Keel, to reconsider, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So I can bring forward that motion then?
Yes, please do.
So I motion that Mr. Kenny will pay 50% of the sign removal to a maximum of $500.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Keel, that we accept $500 from Mr. Kenny for the removal of the sign. Up to $500 for the removal of the sign. All in favor? Oops. Comment, Mayor. Forget about you.
Yeah, no, if I may, Madam Chair. So previously, we discussed this matter after it has gone to, and I did listen to Madam Chair's comments very carefully, that it went to 2 different advisory committees for discussion and comment. I sit on both of them. And a lot of discussion about this is a city asset, that understood that this particular individual didn't like the question mark, saying that it was confusing. And we debated the heck out of it at the previous council meeting about this particular sign and the removal of it. There was a lot of discussion about that, as I understood it, that it shouldn't cost the city of Pembroke anything to remove the sign when it's Mr. Kenny that seems to have the issue with this particular sign. And so the $1,000 was put into it, and yet now we're looking to, and there's a motion to reconsider, which I abstain, which means it's a negative vote, at least from myself, because I don't understand why this is costing the city of Pembroke to remove this particular sign. So much so that at the last instance, what I indicated is that perhaps then we should be looking at a new electronic sign to not only advertise the industrial park, but all of the city of Pembroke in terms of events and so forth. And so I'm almost wondering if this council is of such a view to remove things and so forth, maybe it should be tabled to have staff look at, and I've already asked staff to look at, what is the cost of an electronic sign. And so before you start removing things and figuring out what you need to leave behind and so forth to put up an electronic sign, perhaps we should be looking at that so that we can evaluate the erection of an electronic sign at that particular location, because I find it odd that previously references by this particular individual, well, I'll pay $1,000 to move it over to a different location, seems to be adamant that doesn't want anything there. So it almost makes me wonder that if we were to wait then to have this bigger discussion about what should be at that particular location, that there's going to be a substantial pushback. So that's the one part. But the other part is I really don't understand why the city of Pembroke would be paying anything to have this particular sign, this sign removed. So in terms of the motion, I'm voting against it, and we'll be requesting a recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, as far as electronic sign goes, there's one down at KI, just a couple blocks away. So I don't know why we would want an electronic sign at that location. And then if we put up an electronic sign there and take this sign down, we look like a bunch of fools putting up an electronic sign a couple years later in front of Mr. Kenny's property and getting all confusion. We've been dealing with this for over 4 years. It has caused problem for the business owner. I know it's going to cost some money to remove the sign. I'm not a sign guy. Maybe it will cost $600, $900. I say we assist the gentleman. He has plans for expansion. He started his tubing business down the river. He has a nice, tasty fish and chip stand there that the business owner has of the fish and chip stand. He wants to stay in Pembroke. He wants to promote Pembroke. It's an unfortunate situation. The sign was used by the Economic Development Corporation years ago, and then he comes along and says, no, you can't put your stuff in that sign. So, you know, we've been batting this around long enough, so I say, put it to bed, get rid of the sign, and then he can put up his own sign on his property, and the advisory committees and staff can come to council with another proposal, unless it's the one from 2 weeks ago, for signage for the park and for the tourist booth. And that's how I feel about it, so obviously I support the motion, because I made it.
Councillor Keel?
I'll be supporting the motion, and it's by the skin of Mr. Kenny's teeth. I can't say that I was particularly pleased when we put out our position at the last meeting, and then that was rebuffed. Frankly, right now, I got to say, Madam Chair, I'm in a weird position, because usually I'm quite strong-willed, and I'm finding myself actually sort of perfectly between the deputy mayor and the mayor on this. I do believe and accept from various discussions, not just with Mr. Kenny, but with others, that the current sign, being an information sign, is creating a mild amount of chaos, but some chaos nonetheless in terms of where information is, where people are supposed to. It's not a good sign, what we have right now. I believe that Mr. Unruh, and I'm certainly not accusing him of any negativity, but I feel as though when we unfortunately put him on the spot at the last meeting, I think his estimate of how much it would cost was certainly higher than $1,000. So we did believe even the last time that we were going to be, or we thought we might be expending some city money on what is a city sign. Where I would disagree with the mayor, I don't think that's a good location, whether it's an electronic sign or another sign. I mean, for people coming into town, it's not even on your appropriate side of the road. I agree with Deputy Mayor that the city or the KI has an electronic sign at the corner when you're stopped. I personally don't find electronic signs that effective when you're driving, and certainly that location you would only ever be driving unless you're stopped by somebody turning into Irving's or something like that. I would rather talk to the mayor, and perhaps this is a little bigger and perhaps it would be more expensive, but if we were to look at the entrance sign to the city of Pembroke itself up at the highway, I think that one's a little dated. I think it's sort of it doesn't put our best foot forward. So if we were looking at signage, I would actually go up the road to the corner of the 17 and look at that one. So I'm going to lean to support this, mostly because I agree with the deputy mayor that I think it does cause confusion, and I think Mr. Kenny has put a really good economic foot forward for the city of Pembroke, both with his alcohol distribution business, the tubing, Norkeys. So I think he's given something to the city of Pembroke. And I'm going to accept Mr. Unruh's thought that this is a cheaper matter than originally thought last week, so I'm going to lean in favor.
Councillor Jacno?
To make a motion to table.
Okay, there is a motion to table, moved by Councillor Jacno, seconded by the mayor. No further discussion on a tabling motion, so I will call the question. All in favor? Against? It's a tie. Oh, no, it's four, so it's going to go ahead. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Kinney can be notified. Oh, I thought we voted.
Yeah, there's a recorded vote that was requested also. By
Oh,
the mayor.
was it? I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
So a recorded vote was requested by Mayor Jerva in regards to the motion moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Deputy Mayor Abdallah, that the Parks and Recreation Committee approve that Mr. Kenny pay 50% up to $500 for the removal of the sign with the concrete base and wiring to remain in place.
Point of order. I think I made the motion, seconder, and could you read it once more? Thank you.
My apologies. So the motion was moved by Deputy Mayor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Keel. Am I correct there? That the Parks and Recreation Committee approve that Mr. Kenny pay 50% up to $500 for the removal of the sign with the concrete base and wiring to remain in place. We're okay with that? Okay, so we'll go through the recorded vote. Begin with Deputy Mayor Brian Abdallah,
Yes.
Councillor Ed Giacono,
No.
Councillor Ian Keel,
Yay.
Councillor Andrew Plummer,
Yay.
Councillor Troy Purcell,
Yay.
Mayor Ron Gerva,
Nay.
Councillor Pat Lafreniere.
Okay, so it wasn't tabled. Yes. Let's just put
So
this
the motion carries with 5-2.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, the next item, I'm glad that one's put to bed, though. That's right. So smoking area at the site plan and site plan for the grind. Colleen?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So staff, Renfrew County District Health Unit, and representatives from the Grind have met on site and have had several discussions over the past month on locations for designated smoking areas at the Grind. The Grind would like to propose 2 locations for smoking on site. The first one would be at the front of the building for the clients with a table that would remain outside and chairs that would be brought in every night to limit loitering. The second smoking area would be at the rear of the building for staff and would not contain any furniture. Secondly, a complaint was received regarding the placement of a patio outside of the Grind. They believe that the patio constitutes an outdoor commercial patio as defined by the zoning bylaw, and as such, the Grind is in contravention of the zoning bylaw provisions. According to Section 2 of the zoning bylaw, an outdoor commercial patio is an outdoor area where food, beverage, wine, and/or spirits are served to the public or to the members of a club or organization. As none of the aforementioned amenities are being served at or to the patio, and as the Grind is not a commercial establishment, staff believes the existing patio does not constitute an outdoor commercial patio. Therefore, the provisions of the same would not apply. The patio is built, meets the yard encroachment requirements of the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw states a patio is permitted in any yard which is not closer than 1.97 feet to a lot line, and the patio cannot exceed a height of 2 feet above the finished grade. Both of these requirements are met, and the patio is approximately 17 feet away from the lot line, and the patio is also below the required 2 feet in height above finished grade. However, since the time of writing this report, staff is seeking additional information in which it has not yet received in order to provide the committee with the most accurate assessment of the situation as possible so the committee can make an informed decision. So we're still waiting information.
Councillor Plummer?
Thank you, Chair. So we've all seen the emails and photos and videos and had discussions about issues with loitering, and I just don't see how approving a patio in front of an area that promotes clients from being outside when the services they're needed there to access are inside is good for the area. As well as a smoking area, that's a tough one in the sense that we all know that many people have addictions, and smoking is an addiction, and they're going to do it wherever they're going to do it. So either we give them a spot, which I don't think should be that close to a building. I don't think anywhere how you can have a smoking area that's just a few feet from the front doors is a good location. Why is it not across the street, or somewhere that's more appropriate than it is still a municipal building. I believe there's many smoking bylaws that say you're supposed to be so many feet from a front of a municipal building. So that one is a tough one. I'm not sure how to, I certainly wouldn't be supporting that, but in the sense you're gonna have to give them somewhere to smoke, or if you don't, they're gonna smoke anywhere anyway, so you're kind of euchred at that point. But I certainly won't be supporting a patio that's gonna promote in some more additional loitering for the area, and it's gonna cause more issues than we already currently have. Thank you.
Mayor Jerva?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in addition to the report that we received, as I understand it, staff are trying to gather some other form of information. And so I know for myself, I don't feel that I'm in a position to respond or to make a decision if I don't have everything that staff is seemingly trying to put together. I did read all the different emails. I suspect that what's happening then is staff are taking that input and trying to address that and give us something that we can work with. So having said that, I don't want to stifle discussion, but at the same time, as opposed to discussing it all night, if there's enough agreement to table it, I would have thought staff will come back with a complete, more fulsome report, and we can then decide. Perhaps it's addressing concerns that Councillor Plummer has that I share, but until I have everything from staff, I don't feel like I'm in a position to be able to properly respond to a report that isn't obviously complete. So.
Thank you. We did have Councillor Keel commenting, and then Councillor Jackno, but I think that the mayor has just put forward a motion to table.
Again, I don't mind bringing forward a motion to table if there's a seconder, and perhaps it's not to stop any discussion, but the discussion would be at a meeting when staff would provide us with all of the information.
Do you want to put forward a motion, and we'll deal with that?
I would make a motion to table if there's a seconder for that.
Okay, motion to table. Does it have a seconder? I don't see a seconder, so discussion will continue. Councillor Keel?
I may still entertain the second one, but I did want to get my comments in. I certainly thank Ms. Sorial for her report and her analysis with respect to the zoning or whatnot. It's certainly an excellent report, as always, coming from our planning department. I, however, am going to move the discussion in a completely different direction, which is to say their lease does not include any outdoor area. I don't know why there's a patio there at the moment. It is not part of their lease. Their lease does not provide for any smoking areas. It doesn't provide for anything outside of the walls of the former fire hall, and it gives them 5 public parking spaces. I'm not going to support a patio now. I'm not going to support a client smoking area now. This staff smoking area is directly in the path of seniors parking and going into the senior center. I will never support that particular smoking area. So we can have a discussion about zoning, we can have a discussion about other things. We heard, and I'm going to take him at his word, when Mr. Novak was here, he said, we will not police outside of the building. You know what? I'm going to take him at his word. So he gets nothing outside of his building. So I won't support it now, I won't support it later. That's my position, and it is not going to change.
Councillor Jackno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will not be supporting the patio as well. Having been a former smoker, I can identify with the addiction and how difficult it is to quit. And if you're providing a smoking area for people, I think what you're doing is you're encouraging them to continue with their addiction and not to seek help to alleviate the addiction. As a smoker, previously, when I was at someone else's home and they were non-smokers, I did not smoke there. I respected that. That same respect has to go to the neighbors who live within the area. So if you deny them the fact that they can have a smoking area within a defined area, they're just going to move onto somebody's lawn to have a smoke. That's what smokers do. I'm very sensitive to the fact that they're asking for a smoking area. Municipally, there's a bylaw, I believe, that says you have to be so many feet from a building. Is that correct, through you to Ms. Oriel?
Through you, Madam Chairperson, there is a provincial legislation that says it has to be 20 meters, no smoking, no vaping, 20 meters from a community center. And the seniors center is considered as a community center, and we've put up signs all around that building now. When the health unit was on site, we had a wheel and we measured the 20 meters. I was under the impression that it was 9 meters from any entranceway, but I was incorrect. And the health unit said that the smoking area could be beside the entranceway to the grind, and it is 20 meters past there. So the two smoking areas that are shown on the attached site plan are areas that have been measured by the health unit and are approved by the health unit.
Well, I suggest, Madam Chair, that no smoking be allowed, and that the individuals should be seeking assistance to get rid of their habit, and that if the Board of Health wants to do something, they can provide them with some Nicorette and point them in the right direction. Because the neighbors shouldn't be, they shouldn't be looking at having someone sitting on their front doorstep having a smoke, because you can't smoke 9 meters away from there, but you can over here. So it's catch-22. I'm against the patio, and I'm against the allowance of smoking, period.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. So I have a couple of perspectives here. So I asked Ms. Sorial a few weeks ago to look into council adopting a no smoking bylaw, and it's on your to-do list. I know you're looking into it. Modeled after probably Petawawa, with 30 meters away from any leased or owned city building. So obviously, if I asked that request of Ms. Sorial, I'm not going to support an area for smoking at this facility, because if once we pass the bylaw, it'll be a municipal-owned building. I can't imagine the residents when you look at the. I went there the other day on Saturday, and I was speaking with two of the residents, and I can't imagine that when you look at the area where they want to smoke. I thought it was 9 meters from the door of a public building, but now you're telling me that the health unit said it's okay, just smoke outside the door. So regardless of that fact, when the grind came, I voted against the location. I support the grind's mandate, what they do, but it's a congested area. It's a residential area, and you cannot have people smoking at the back door when the residents when the members come to the exhibiting center, as Councillor Keel said. And also, the neighbors are right there. It's not fair to the neighbors, the taxpayers, the residents who've lived there for years. And it's just not right. It's not the right thing to do. It's unhealthy. And as far as the frontage goes, they should be 30 meters away. I hope council will support this smoking bylaw once it comes forward by staff later on. I can't support smoking in front of the front door either. The other issue is, I have a question for you. And I was going to email it to you, but I didn't get time. I worked all day, and I apologize for that. But if you look at the zoning bylaw, Section 3.25 talks about outdoor commercial patio, which you refer to as it's okay because they're not serving food or drinks or whatever. But they have takeout food in that. But besides that point, it does say, page 69, you have to have 30 feet away from a residential area. But if you go down to section 13.3 for accessory uses, I'm just looking at it here. If you go to accessory uses, it says 13.3, number 3, accessory uses, building and structures, parking, street frontage, and other general provisions shall be in accordance with section 3 of this bylaw. So this is institutionally zoned, which is section 13.3 refers to. So doesn't that apply? It's institutionally zoned. You need to be, the patio has to be 30 meters away. That's why, can you clarify that?
Through you, Madam Chairperson. It's under section 3.39, yard encroachments, where it specifically talks about patios and balconies and decks and things like that. And so a patio is, again, like I said earlier in the report, it can't be 1.97 feet to a lot line. It has to be no closer than 1.97 feet to a lot line and cannot exceed a height of 2 feet above grade. So it's specific in there, it's a patio, so that, and it meets those requirements.
But for institutional zone though, under accessory uses, that doesn't
No.
qualify?
No.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So I don't support a patio either. It wasn't in the original lease agreement. It says here the table's going to remain outside. There's been issue of loitering, and there's been other issues of residents getting attacked. So that comes from my other perspective of safety. It's not safe for the residents. It's not safe for the clients. So for those reasons, I can't support either a patio or a smoking area at at the grind establishment. Thank you.
Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo the same sentiments as Councillor Keel and Deputy Mayor Abdallah. You know, I'd like to see the City of Pembroke incorporate a new smoking and vape a bylaw as well, where we can institute, I guess, more distance in regards from various different locations, indoor locations on municipal property. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, is to see that. Also, you know, tonight we saw, you know, Mr. Finnegan provide, you know, his eloquent presentation and talking about the cafe owner and the connector of people. You know, it's really important that, you know, he talked about the importance in terms of consulting and in terms of initiatives that are going forward. And I think the grind, based on the information I've received, needs to do a better job in terms of working with the neighbors to address some of these concerns. And, you know, I'm adamant that, you know, when a patio is already built in a location where the grind executive are aware in terms of the issues and the concerns of the neighbor, that you go ahead and build it. Well, build it and they come. They're not going to come. I do not support this. I do not support the loitering. I don't support the types of activities that aren't being regulated outside the building. And I also do not support the smoking locations as proposed. I would look at, once we look at a new smoking and vaping bylaw, looking at those distances and then seeing where that would work, but not on that municipal property. I think it just doesn't work out. And I think I think we need to do something now in terms of the nuisances that are happening on an ongoing basis to the neighborhood. And you know, I hear it on a regular basis. And we need the grind and the neighborhood to come together and come up with, you know, consensus in terms of what's going to work for them. And I think that's really, really important. And in fact, I look forward going to the AGM this Thursday at the grind to participate in some of the dialogue that hopefully will come out of that meeting. And, you know, I'm willing to discuss and be a mediator to help resolve some of those concerns and issues. But right now, I do not support the patio and I do not support the proposed smoking locations. Thank you.
May I speak from the chair? First, I want to ask a question to Colleen, Ms. Soriel. The opinion you're waiting for, is it a legal opinion?
Yes, I was seeking legal advice on the lease itself and the smoking area and the
Okay,
patio.
so that being said, I would like to hear that legal opinion as well. It doesn't preclude that I have my own thoughts, which are very similar to what I'm hearing around the table. I think that the organization, The Grind, is doing great work, but sometimes I think when you have a passion to do something, your blinders are on sometime, and that's all you're thinking about is reaching out, and you're maybe not doing everything, you know, to satisfy your neighbors, and that bothers me too. I don't know that I support that patio, because it's going to draw people in. They're supposed to go to the grind to get lunch to meet possibly with a social worker, a mental health worker, get some, help. Maybe there's a computer they need to get on. They don't need to sit outside for hours and socialize. There's parks in the community if they want to meet someone that they know. There's other areas they can gather and loiter. So those are my thoughts, and I do sympathize with the concerns that I'm hearing. But I do say that I know a lot of people that still smoke. And if they're meeting with a social worker inside, and maybe she has a call, and she's going to be 20 minutes, can you wait 20 minutes? I know they're going to want to go out and have a smoke. Now, they're either going to go out, and I'm just talking about the client area that I'm seeing indicated. They're going to want to go out. These individuals have mental health issues, addiction issues. They want to smoke. If they don't smoke right outside the building, like I'm seeing it there, just the client one, not behind where the seniors park, they're going to walk over to one of the properties that is further from the building, so they'll be smoking right in front of these homes. That's my fear. So I am actually not a smoker myself. I can't stand it. I am in favor of just that one smoking area, no patio table, but just a small smoking area for clients only. And that's the way I feel. No patio, no smoking behind. If the staff want to smoke, they can go to the front with clients. Hate to be cruel. But, I think that these are little things maybe we can do to try to come halfway. Because, like I said, I do know people that still smoke. They've got nervous energy. They're going to want to have that smoke. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Councillor Plummer?
Before I make a motion, because I think it is important still to have a legal opinion, currently there, through the chair, question to the planner, is there currently a patio, I guess, is that correct? They're set up at the moment? They have it, something set up?
Yes, they did build a little patio. It's in the kind of the alcove where beside, it's close to their entrance. But
Okay.
they just built it, yes.
Okay, so seeing that they didn't ask permission, it's not in their lease, I would put a motion on the floor that, I guess would be our bylaw, would ask them to remove their current patio until a time that we actually approve or not approve. So therefore, there would be no patio currently. But, well, I'm just,
So we've heard a lot of opinions. Let me just summarize everything. We've heard the opinions of council. I really do feel we need to get that legal opinion as well before we start saying, you got to do this, you have to do this. So we know what we feel, and I would suggest that we do table this until we get this legal opinion about how to go about achieving what we want. Deputy Mayor?
No, I'm not in favor of tabling. We've already had a table motion that got defeated. So we deal with it tonight.
Councillor Jackno?
I would second the motion made by Councillor Plummer.
Which is, sorry, would you repeat that, Councillor Plummer?
I guess it was a little convoluted, so in seeing the deputy mayor is going to make another motion, I would rescind my motion on that.
I concur.
I had a motion on the floor to remove the patio prior to legal, but I rescinded my motion, so you can motion away.
Just motion to remove the patio.
I'll second it.
Okay, there is a motion to
Instruct staff to take.
instruct staff to remove the patio, seconded by Councillor Keel. Sorry, moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Keel. Further discussion? Councillor Plummer.
There's still the item of this, are we dealing with a smoking area as a separate item tonight, or is this a one all-encompassing motion, no patio, no smoking area?
Okay, I'm going to make a two-folded motion to remove the patio and have staff come back with a no smoking bylaw for Pembroke.
It's complicated.
motion one, remove the patio. Have staff instructed, tell the grinder, remove the patio. That's the motion.
I'll call a question.
Yeah, I concur.
Okay. All in favor? Okay.
Just supplementary, I'm not going to make a motion for smoking bylaw because I've already discussed it with Ms. Soriel, and it's on her to-do list. She's very busy, and when when she and staff are ready, they will come back with a proposal for a smoking bylaw for Pembroke.
Yes, you may, Colleen, go ahead.
Okay, so the health unit has indicated that those highlighted areas can be smoking areas. So will you allow that smoking area until a bylaw or until we receive legal advice about the lease, or until the draft bylaw comes forward?
Yes, Councillor Purcell.
Okay, I move to table the request for the smoking areas to be approved at council until a later date, until such time that we have a smoking and vaping bylaw in place.
I'll second that.
Councillor Jackno.
We're under discussion, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So in other words, people will still smoke there, whether there's a shelter there for them to smoke or to sit at or not, correct? They'll still have the ability to smoke within that designated area. Okay, I'd be against that. Thank you.
Clarification, if we're tabling this request for smoking area, that means we're not approving it tonight. It's getting tabled. The motion is to table. And then we come back with the smoking bylaw for Pembroke, which will probably be 30 meters away. So we're not approving this, we're tabling it. So tabling means no.
So what are we talking about? Either make the motion to table or continue with the motion that's on the floor and vote on it.
No voter. I did make the motion to table.
Did somebody second it?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Abdallah did.
Okay. Then what are we talking?
I will call the question. Motion to table on the floor. All in favor? Against?
Just clarification.
Yes.
So that means that they can't smoke there?
No.
Because it's tabled?
It means they can smoke there, because they're smoking there now. I
No, that was
believe.
never approved by council. If you table something, that
Point of
means
order,
you're
just a
deferring
sec.
it. So they can't smoke there.
If I can assist the chair,
Thank you.
they don't need permission to smoke there. They would need our permission because they don't have any outdoor space outside the lease. If they want to formally build and set up a smoking area, they would need our permission to grant that because they don't have any permissions outside of the walls of the building. What we're saying is we are not approving them building specific smoking areas. However, the law lets anybody tonight or tomorrow smoke in that place because our permission is not needed for that. So what they came to us with is, can we build 2 smoking areas? And we're saying we're not answering you on that. But the law still lets them smoke there generally. Does that make sense to everyone?
Last comment.
Thank you. And that they abide to the Ontario smoke-free legislation as well in terms of the setbacks that are appropriate right now. Yeah.
Okay, so this has been tabled. It was success, so that's the end of that.
Or you
And
got to call a vote on table? There's no vote.
we already did.
When?
I believe it did pass.
Sorry,
I believe.
too much back
yeah,
and forth.
Yeah, okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Moved by Councillor Keel to adjourn, seconded by Councillor Plummer, all in favor? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this council meeting to order for June 20th. I'd ask that everyone please stand for an opening prayer and reflection. Before this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interests this evening? Seeing none. First up, we have minutes. First is the regular meeting of council, June 6, 2023. I'd entertain a motion for their approval. I have the deputy mayor, second by Councillor Giacono. Those in favor? That is carried. Second set of minutes is Parks and Recreation Committee from May 16th, 2023. Again, I'd entertain a motion for their adoption. I have Councillor Keel, second by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? That's carried. Next is receiving minutes from local boards. We only have one this evening. Pembroke Heritage Murals Committee, June 7, 2023. Moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That is carried. Proclamations. By virtue of the power vested in me, I do hereby declare June 21st, 2023 as National Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Pembroke. Whereas the Government of Canada acknowledges June as National Indigenous History Month and June 21st as National Indigenous Peoples Day as a way to honor the history, heritage, and diversity of Indigenous people in Canada, as well as to recognize the strength of present-day Indigenous communities. And whereas the Indigenous peoples of Canada have made and continue to make valuable contributions to the Canadian society, and it is considered appropriate that there be in each year a day to mark and celebrate these contributions and to recognize the different cultures of the Indigenous people of Canada. And whereas National Indigenous Peoples Day is a wonderful opportunity to become better acquainted with the cultural diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people and to discover the unique accomplishments of Indigenous peoples. And whereas the City of Pembroke is a community that celebrates its cultural diversity, therefore, be it resolved that I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, do hereby proclaim June 21st, 2023 as National Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Pembroke and urge all residents to take this opportunity to celebrate and recognize the contributions of the Indigenous peoples to our communities and country. As indicated, June 21st is National Indigenous Peoples Day. This is an opportunity for everyone to celebrate the cultural richness and contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I encourage all of our residents to celebrate and embrace our rich cultural fabric. There will be teachings, musics, and activities for all ages tomorrow at the Pembroke Waterfront Amphitheatre. I encourage everyone to attend. For bylaws, first up is 2023-45 Asset Naming Policy. Councillor Keel.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Purcell, that bylaw 2023-45, a bylaw to adopt an asset naming policy for the corporation of the City of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Purcell, that bylaw 2023-45, a bylaw to adopt an asset naming policy for the corporation of the City of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Keel.
Just quickly, Your Worship, this stems from a request that was made by the family of John Beavis, a former employee of the City of Pembroke who passed tragically while assisting in a water rescue a number of years ago. At the time that it was brought forward to us, I think it was recognized that at the time we only had a policy in terms of naming future roads, and it was thought that there's potentially other fitting assets of the City of Pembroke that could be named after deserving people. As such, we put staff to work and asked them to create an asset naming policy. We have what I would describe as an excellent policy from our staff that will allow the City Council in the future to appropriately recognize those that have achieved greatness amongst our ranks, and I submit it to Council for approval tonight.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next is 2023-47, encroachment agreement for the PBIA Art in the Park. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of council, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2023-47 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of an encroachment agreement between the Pembroke Business Improvement Area, known as the PBIA, and the Corporation of the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the bylaw be signed by yourself and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation and awaiting your signature. Sorry.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2023-47, a bylaw to authorize the entering into an encroachment agreement between the Pembroke Business Improvement Area and the Corporation of the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was discussed at the June 6th meeting, and it will allow the PBIA to proceed with their Art in the Park venue. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Next is 2023-48, site plan agreement amending bylaw. Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell. I can't read signatures very well. That bylaw 2023-48, a bylaw to designate an area subject to site plan control and to delegate site plan approvals to the Chief Administrative Officer, be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. There you go.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell, that bylaw 2023-48, a bylaw to designate an area subject to a site plan control, to delegate site plan approvals for the Chief Administrative Officer be adopted and passed, and further that said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Councillor Lafreniere.
Yes, on October 25th, 2022, the province introduced Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act. This bill received royal assent on November 28th of last year. The goal of this act is to increase housing supply. The objectives of the act are to support increasing the housing supply, the affordability, and improvements to process that facilitate timely approvals. January 3rd, there were changes to the site plan approval process. The act removes exterior design as a consideration in the process and no longer requires developments of 10 or fewer residential units to receive site plan approval. This is currently in effect as of November 28th of last year. The city's existing site plan control bylaw establishes that development of 3 or more residential units is subject to site plan approval. Now that the act has been passed, the city's site plan control bylaw must be amended. And that's what this is doing tonight. For smaller developments of 10 residential units or less, the city has amended its building bylaw to control the grading of land in the absence of a site plan agreement. So, lots of changes.
Thank you. Those in favor? That is carried. Next is 2023-49, Deputy Mayor Abdallah, tax rate reductions.
Thank you, Mayor Gervais. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell, that bylaw 2023-49, a bylaw to set tax rate reductions for prescribed property subclasses for municipal purposes for the year 2023 be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation.
Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Purcell, bylaw 2023-49, a bylaw to set tax rate reductions for prescribed property subclasses for municipal purposes for the 2023 year be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. A bylaw to set tax reductions for prescribed property subclasses for municipal purposes for 2023. Section 313 of the Municipal Act requires council to pass a bylaw each year to establish tax rate reductions for prescribed property subclasses. The subclasses are for vacant and or excess land in the commercial and industrial classes. On December 17, 2019, the Council of the City of Pembroke adopted a resolution to phase out subclass reductions for vacant and excess land in the commercial class by reducing the reductions from 30 to 20 and 10% in 2020 and 2021 respectively. Phase out subclass reductions for vacant and excess land in the industrial class by reducing the reductions from 35 to 25 and 15% in 2020 and 2021 respectively. Eliminate reductions for vacant and excess land in both commercial and industrial classes in 2022 and beyond. The city received notification from the province of their approval of these changes on July 7th, 2020. These reductions are applicable to the municipal portion of the property tax bill only. The province has eliminated any reduction on the education portion of property taxes for the commercial and industrial subclasses in 2020.
Thank you. Those in favor? That is carried. 2023-50, imposing late payment charges for non-payment of taxes. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Keel, that bylaw 2023-50, a bylaw to impose late payment charges for non-payment of taxes, be adopted and passed. And further that and said the bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Keel. Bylaw 2023-50, a bylaw to impose late payment charges for non-payment of taxes, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Purcell.
Certainly, thank you. It's a bylaw that set late payment interest rates for non-payment of property taxes. Again, this change was discussed on March the 7th of 2023 at the Finance and Administration Committee meeting, and it's in step with the City of Pembroke's final tax billing cycle and due dates. The bylaw will change the interest rate charged for overdue taxes from 1% per month to 1.25% per month and be effective as of September 1st, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Plummer, 2023-51, tax levy for 2023.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Jacquin on the bylaw 2023-51, a bylaw to provide for a tax levy for the City of Pembroke for the year 2023 and to establish tax rates to raise same, be adopted and passed, and further said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Jacquino, that bylaw 2023-51, a bylaw to provide for a tax levy for the City of Pembroke for the year 2023 and to establish tax rates to raise same, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you. This bylaw is to establish 2023 tax rates for all classes of property.
Thank you. Those in favor? That is carried. For the mayor's report, on June 13th, I had the pleasure to attend Marion Hill for the announcement by Minister Calandra and MPP John Yakubuski regarding the expansion of Marion Hill. I understand an additional 29 beds will be added to the long-term care facility as a result of a huge wing being added to the building. This is a $59 million expansion. Further, the community has stepped up under the leadership of Hector Cluche by providing $1.1 million in donations to this project. Clearly, the minister and his government acknowledges the pressure on long-term care facilities and is responding with the appropriate action that is decisive. This is great news for the members of the community that need long-term care and for the loved ones that surround them. Well done to the Government of Ontario and well done to the community, and I especially took note of the $1.1 million when we will be seeking funds in respect to a new aquatics facility. On June 16th, the CAO and I had the pleasure to meet with the hospital CAO, Sabine Mersman, for a tour of the hospital. This was to build upon the initial meeting of Ms. Mersman coming to council and having a conversation with us. It was very interesting to see the hospital infrastructure from a different vantage point and not as a member of the public accessing services there. There is significant construction going on with huge advancements to make our regional hospital a great place to receive health care. Further, this is not lost on me that the construction work that is going on there is contributing to our local economy, as there's many contractors performing work there. Thank you to the CAO for arranging this great opportunity, our CAO, to arrange this opportunity with Ms. Mersman. On a somber note, as has been indicated in the press from the garrison, from the town of Petawawa, and from the city of Pembroke, an accident happened earlier this morning involving a Chinook helicopter that crashed into the Ottawa River. 2 members have been found and taken to hospital, and 2 have yet to be located. Due to the helicopter crashing into the Ottawa River, the town has stopped intake of water for treatment. The city of Pembroke is providing water to the town of Petawawa. I would ask that all residents please limit water usage as much as possible until further notice. There is no threat to our drinking water quality. Our thoughts and prayers are with the members involved in this incident and their families. As always, please stay safe and be kind to one another. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none, are there any councillor updates? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few items tonight. First, I'll start with bad news. 10 days ago, the public washroom on the west side of the waterfront park was vandalized, and also the new garden shed was vandalized. Staff and the contractor removed the graffiti, and we know how much work the volunteers, the Community Foundation, the Horticultural Society, Kiwanis Club, all the clubs, everyone put into the waterfront park, especially with the new Arboretum in celebration of their 100th anniversary for Kiwanis and the Horticultural Society. So we were very saddened to see this. This is a community watch zone also. So yesterday, or this morning, I find out that vandals have struck again, same spot. The vandal wrote on the public washroom, "Nice try, ha ha ha." So some idiot, or vandal, whatever you want to call them, has egged us on, and we will not tolerate this. I've spoken about it to the mayor, chair of the Police Services Board, Mr. Fred Blackstein. We know how much effort under his leadership. We will be bringing it up at our waterfront committee meeting on Thursday that Councillor Keel and I sit on. We will have zero tolerance. We will pursue every angle that we have, be it security cameras, no trespass orders, and restitution. The culprit will be caught, and they will have to pay for the damages. It will also be requested to be banned from city facilities, which the CAO has the authority to do. This is a community watch zone. We also had vandalism at the Timber Mural and the First Baptist Church and other facilities in Pembroke. This is a community watch zone which was established last year, and I volunteered to be the captain. So I'm going to take it on my part to coordinate volunteers to keep an eye on the place and actively patrol and pursue. The police can only do so much. It'll take a community effort. Also, the Timber Mural and the Rapid Skate Park will be part of the community watch zone, as the downtown core is going to be established at a July meeting of the Police Services Board, which they'll approve. And we have another zone out in Johnson Meadows going to be approved. So this will not be tolerated. I've posted on Facebook the pictures, and I've asked if anybody wants to join this community watch zone waterfront, and I'll be soliciting the public when I'm down there this summer in a couple of weeks, well actually next week, and they can contact, if you want to join our group to watch the waterfront, you can contact the Mayor Gervais or Councillor Giacono. It's not a vigilante group, just you go down there, you see something funny going on, you contact the toll-free number of the police. So that's the bad news. Now I have some good news. On behalf of the PBIA, The Youth Pop-Up Market starts in July at Shamrock Park, Thursdays from 12 till 2. This has been an ongoing event every year for young entrepreneurs. Treats, sweets, crafts, clothing, jewelry, whatever your imagination can make. You can email the PBA at pba@downtownpembroke.ca or phone 629-5555. Thursday is the grand opening of the Visitor Information Center in the Phoenix Center on the first floor. And we invite all councillors to come to the grand opening. I won't be able to make it, I'll be working. But the grand opening is at 10:30. And you can find information about any community event in Pembroke and the Ottawa Valley, activities, facilities throughout the valley. And we want to thank the Ottawa Valley Travel for partnering with us on this Visitor Information Center. This will add on to what the motion that Councillor Giacono had tonight. Experience the Community Art Walk, which Council approved. We want to thank the sponsor, Mike's Hardware, Doors and More. Mike's Hardware, Doors and so much more for being the major sponsor of the Community Art Walk. All the canvases have been selected and spoken for, and we look forward to the artwork. We also want to thank the Algonquins of Greater Golden Lake and Dulux Paints for sponsoring this also. And finally, we had our second Pembroke Youth Council meeting at the library last week, and it was great to have Councillor Frenier and Councillor Purcell in attendance. Spoken about a lot of community issues. Our next meeting is September 26th. We had Vice Principal of Phillips High School there. Oh, Councillor Keel, yes, sorry. Did I say Councillor Purcell? My apologies. Too much information. And anyhow, we are going to take part in the August 26th event at the PMC. They did it a couple of years ago. It's going to be called the Pembroke Youth Try It Expo, and we'll have a booth there. And the Youth Council will work in conjunction with Parks and Rec Department, inviting other non-sports groups, anything to do with youth. The idea is to ramp up in the fall and get more students involved. So it's looking good. It'll take a while to get going. Thank you, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor, has the PBIA come up with a new, I saw it on your desk, a new...
Oh, yes. I wanted to also talk about the guide, the Pembroke PBA Eateries Guide, right here. There's over 20 restaurants in downtown Pembroke that you can eat from. This is available throughout downtown and at the PBA office. And we also invite you to our patios on Victoria Street and on right beside Vogue Cleaners also. And the patio at beside Nomada Tacos is also up and running. We also want to shout out to all the restaurants in Pembroke, not just the PBA. We have many good eateries in Pembroke, Pembroke Mall, and East End and West End. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Your Worship, and certainly off the top, I want to echo your comments about the crash that happened very early this morning. Certainly my thoughts are with the 450 Tactical Helicopter Squadron and all our military members and their families. You know, they're protecting us day and night, and it's a dangerous job, not just overseas, but the training that they're doing also has its risks, and I know we all wish for a positive outcome as that matter continues. Last June 15th, I had the opportunity to go downtown for the PBI's spring shop hop, and I was actually following the deputy mayor. He was about a block in front of me. It's a great opportunity to showcase our downtown core. It was Chloe B offering some music at Shamrock Park. Excellent music, by the way. Certainly a fair share of country songs in there. She obviously had knew what I was looking for in terms of my music. We also had the opportunity to paint, I think, what was the first board of the Art in the Park. And I encourage everyone in the future to go look at the deputy mayor's dog / chicken / dinosaur. It just goes to art is in the eye of the beholder, and But no, it was great. It was great to be able to follow the deputy mayor. I know he's our representative on the PBIA, and I just wish I was a few minutes sooner. I would have caught him. I also want to give our festival hall update. June 23rd, CDE Dance Academy presents Take More Chances, Learn More Dances at Festival Hall. Next month, the last of the Duke Street Kings, Bruce Springsteen tribute, and so much more coming up. The fall calendar is already being filled, and I actually just checked, Rick Wharton's already booking into 2024, Your Worship. A calendar's on the event, and I already have my tickets for the Tim McGraw tribute show. So I'll be right there in the third row with members of my family and friends, and I encourage everyone to attend our local festival hall for events.
Thank you. Councillor Jacquinot?
Your Worship, just an update from the Renfrew County Housing Authority. The construction of the 10-unit units on Douglas and corner of Douglas and Lee are taking place. Of course, the warden of Renfrew County, Peter Emo, has been working diligently with people at AMO to try and impress on him the extreme need for affordable housing within our area. I think we all sort of ran our campaigns on that, so it's beginning to happen. It's trickling through. There's a lot of other housing taking place within the area, construction, so that's a good thing. Also, as a part of the mural committee, I've been asked by Pam Dempsey, who is the chairperson, diligent worker, to ask the public to be vigilant on any suspicious activities that may be taking place. Everybody has a cell phone today pretty well. Some have car cams. If you see something that you feel is suspicious, it usually is, just to document that and maybe forward it to Inspector Newfield or to the OPP for their, community policing means the community has to work together. Just one or two people can't do it. The other thing is, in regards to the graffiti that Deputy Mayor alluded to, graffiti is an art form when you look at it. I mean, it really is. Bansky, who's from England, a renowned graffiti artist, is a multi-millionaire. Based on street graffiti that he began with, which was looked at as damaging, but he took it on as it became a career for him. And I know the people that are here on our walls doing the damage to our walls, I think they're artists in the making, and they're looking for some sort of a reward. So, Your Worship, I would suggest if they would come here to council to see you and Inspector Newfield and identify themselves, you'd be more than pleased to give them their reward. I'm sure you would. But anyway, my other comment on that is perhaps they're looking for an outlet. We don't know who they are, whether they're young people, elderly people, young middle-aged people who are doing that. They may be looking for an outlet, and in some communities they had a wall where graffiti artists could go in, and it changed. It changed every week because they came and expressed themselves on this wall. Consequently, the graffiti in those communities dropped considerably or almost to zero. So that may be a suggestion for art in the park, maybe in the future. Invite these, what would I call them, budding artists to come forward and to express themselves in an area where other people can appreciate their work rather than us having to go through expenditures to erase their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple information items that coming out of the library. As you're well aware, a multicultural festival is coming soon, July 14th and 15th at the waterfront. Coming out of that, we are also still looking for some sponsors for that event. So if you are willing to sponsor the event, please reach out to myself, Deputy Mayor Adala, or Carthy with the library. That'd be greatly appreciated. Another good note, I just wanted to inform everyone that the Pembroke Multicultural Festival won the Event of the Year award, and it was a great pleasure that the congratulations to the Pembroke Multicultural Festival for receiving the 2023 Event of the Year award from the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association. The award recognizes the event festival that sets an example for an industry best practices and sets the example for other events. The festival breaks down barriers and allows people to focus on unity and rather than the stuff that divides us. So keep up the great work, and this was provided to the library on behalf of John Yakubuski, our MPP. So congratulations to all the hard work put in by library staff and board members in regards to the Multicultural Festival. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry, a couple other things. The TD Summer Program. So the TD Reading Summer Program, there's still vacancies, so if you just want to reach out to the library, that's a good opportunity for youth to get involved in terms of the summer programs that we have available at the library. And again, you know, really we're looking for some additional support for the Multicultural Festival in terms of sponsors. So please, you know, use your connections, reach out and see if we can make this the best festival ever. Thank you.
Thank you. And I understand, Councillor Frenier, you have a motion to move into a closed session?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell, that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee, to discuss physician recruitment, Section 239 2B of the Municipal Act.
Councillor Frenier, seconded by Councillor Purcell. This meeting become a closed meeting to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, to discuss physician recruitment, Section 239 sub 2 sub B of the Municipal Act. Those in favor? That is carried. We will now move into a closed session.